It's time for Windows Weekly. Yes, we're back. The power was out for a couple of days, so we're doing it a little bit late, but we've got a great show for you, including, we need trumpets, the gold master of Windows 10 1909. Paul and Mary Jo will talk about it and why all the new features are turned off. We also have some Xbox news and a great beer called Becky. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 642, recorded Friday, October 11th, 2019. Internet on a Disk. Windows Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. It's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/Windows. And by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/Windows. And by Microsoft Mechanics, the official show from Microsoft for tech enthusiasts, IT pros, and software architects. Get deep dives from the engineers behind the tech, or just learn the essentials of the latest from Microsoft. Visit aka.ms/WWMechanics to watch and subscribe today. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft. And the latest news is actually from the Twit Eastside Studios, because this is the first show we've done in more than 48 hours. Actually, more like 60 hours. Hello, Paul. Hello, Mary Jo. Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com. Mary Jo Foley from ZDNet.
Was it like cracking open a time capsule going in there?
You know, you'd
like
think.
All dusty and everything.
The power went out Tuesday about 2:45 a.m.
Yeah.
We came back Thursday night at about 5 p.m. It's not that long, but it felt like an eternity.
The planet had been run by apes by that point.
Like,
So for
you didn't have power at home either, right?
No, that's the lucky thing. We did have power at home. And in a way, that's unlucky because what we were doing in the interim is figuring out how we could move this entire studio to my house.
Oh, wow.
Which would not have been fun. Because the thing is, we're still going to work on those contingency plans because it could happen again in a minute. As soon as so what happened is our local power company, or as the governor of California repeatedly insisted on calling them, the investor-owned power company. He didn't want anybody to think that it had anything to do with the state.
Well, a lot of people were reporting this as the state doing it, right?
Yeah, he did not. He was wanting to make this very clear. It's a private entity, regulated entity, but not very well regulated.
When does their contract come up?
No kidding. No kidding. I could tell you so many things that we hate about PG&E. Personally, they limit. We put solar panels on our house. I would have loved to have been completely off the grid, but they don't. They won't let you, and they will only let you put enough panels to supply exactly your needs, no more. So you can't generate.
I was going to say you can't give back.
No, well, you do give it back. You pump it into their system, and then they give you a deal or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it seems like.
But what I'd like is to get a power wall and be off the grid. They don't want that. No, they don't want us to compete with their nice, beautiful, shiny
I was going to say, they don't want that because they are the grid.
They are the grid. They're the power plants, and they make money on the power plants. Secondarily, they didn't do any maintenance. You'd think 2 years ago, this area, the fire came within 6 miles of us. A year ago, an entire town, Paradise, California, was burnt to the ground with great loss of life, and of course, an entire town which is gone. And you'd think they would have, in the interim, said, well, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. But apparently they did nothing. They were given $100 million to retrofit their equipment and gave it as bonuses to their directors.
Oh, man.
Yikes.
So this is the worst company. It's corrupt. And there was no, we're sitting here with the power out, and there's no wind. There's no heat. There's none of the conditions that occurred 2 years ago.
Yep. So what prompted this?
They said we're going to have high winds and low humidity, not heat, but low humidity.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, because we don't know if our lines will spark, and remember, this is an arid.
How could they not know?
Well, they don't know. This is an arid climate here, so we haven't had rain since April, and that's normal. So we get these long. So everything's very dry, and all the grass is brown, and all the leaves are brown, and the skies are gray, and so the idea is, I guess, so everything's underground here, so there's no sparking in our area. But I guess the transmission lines that carry us power must go through the woods.
Maybe they could have used that money to put those things on the ground.
Well, that was, that was the plan. That was the plan, but they apparently, and then of course they got sued for $30 billion. They've had billions of dollars in losses because of that, because they let it happen before. So they went bankrupt in January and said, oh yeah, we can't do anything else. That's it. Now all they can do, they say, is, well, when it's dangerous, we'll just turn off your power. So my point being, it could happen again. So we're working on Plan B, but it's not. We don't have generators because it's not like we're a hospital.
It happens all the time. Yeah.
Well, it never has happened ever.
Right.
Yeah, but this might be the new normal because of
that's the
way things have changed. That's terrible.
John made of the outage. This is our neck of the woods, our neighborhood. That's the TWIT building right there. You can see we're right on the edge.
Oh boy, you should have ran an extension cable.
We could have done, everything else was fine. We could have run a little cable across the. So we got as bad as it can. We're in the worst. In fact, the old Brick House studio wasn't, in fact, on.
That's what I was just going to ask. The previous one was not in that zone.
Petaluma didn't go out. Now they're doing Southern California. I think it's PG&E just saying.
I got to say, it's kind of pretty from a distance.
Yeah, from a distance, it looks nice. And and to their credit, there were no wildfires sparked by their lines when the lines were off.
Yes, but that's like saying Windows NT is really secure when you don't connect it to a network.
Don't connect it to the internet. It's good. This is the Northern California outages. Now they're going to do SoCal. But Silicon Valley, also parts of Silicon Valley were out. So frustrating. Anyway, nobody tuned in for this, and I apologize. That's
no, everyone was asking us what was going on.
I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people are curious about.
Big deal for us, and we're thrilled to be back. I missed. It was good in one way because it really reminded me how much I like doing these shows. I really missed it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I also now we have to plan a little better for the future. So, hi, Paul. Hi, Mary Jo. Anything happen while we were gone?
One or two things.
Is there a new Windows or anything like that?
Actually, there is.
What?
News.
What?
I know. So, yeah.
What happened?
Guess what? This is great. For once, since we've been doing feature updates for Windows 10, Microsoft actually did a blog post talking about RTM, but they didn't call it RTM. They just said...
Yeah, but you know what? We're going to take this as a win. They literally said
it's a huge win.
They said it's done.
It's done.
They've never said that, to my knowledge. Ever since maybe the very first version. Right.
Yep. Windows 10 1909 is done. Coming in November. They're going to call it the November update.
I guess that's still funny. But you know what? Again, I'm gonna let that one pass because they said it was done.
Yep. Yeah. So right now it's in the release preview ring among insiders. I think soon it will go to people working at Microsoft so they can deploy it in their desktop and be another group of people testing it.
Right.
And then it'll start rolling out to the mainstream in November. We don't know exactly when in November, but I do know that Server 1909 is supposed to be around mid-November. So either they'll make client just shortly before that, or they'll make them simultaneous.
It's interesting.
So you're telling me the September 2019 release is coming out in
but you know what? Again, we're going to let that one pass. It's fine.
Okay, it's a win.
Because they said it was done.
Yeah.
It's a win.
This has cured all of the other problems. Last year, remember, at the October hardware event, they prematurely announced the release of 1809 at the time. Yeah. They had to pull it back. It was a terrible disaster, et cetera, et cetera. This event, of course, there was all the stuff that was going on with the event this year, and we kind of forgot about this little tidbit, but They did not announce anything about Windows 1909 or anything, any other version. Well, they announced Windows 10X, but the November date is concurrent with Ignite, and that would seem like a fairly logical time to discuss this, and how they change things. And hopefully, if we're really lucky, and I know you don't think this is going to happen, you've been told it's not going to happen, but maybe this will be the new normal for Windows releases.
Maybe it will. I've heard things both ways. I've heard some people saying from now on, this is going to be how it goes. The fall update is going to be the small update. And
that would be beautiful.
Then I've heard other people saying, you know what, this was a one-off thing because they were syncing up the schedules of the Azure engineers and the Windows engineers. And no, this is not how it's going to be. It's going to go back to the way it was.
Yeah, but, feedback has a funny way of changing things. I think they're going to get a lot of really positive feedback about this.
Me too. Yep.
I mean, aside from the logical arguments we've been making for the past 2-3 years, whatever, this every 6-month thing is untenable. And so making the second of those a service pack or whatever you want to call that is exactly right.
It is.
It's what they should do.
I know. So if you're on 1903 when this starts rolling out, to you, this will look like a cumulative update. It'll be really small. It'll install really fast. And it will be very like a lightweight update to 1903.
You might kind of not even notice it, really. I mean,
I know, right? Yeah. If you're on an earlier update, it's going to look like a typical feature update to you. Yeah. Right. So it won't be quick and easy. It'll be like a regular feature update.
Okay. So, and then the other bonus news: none of the new features are turned on.
That's my understanding. Right.
So, right.
Don't rush to get it because, well, I guess you could turn them on. Why aren't they turned on?
But from an end user perspective, there's nothing there, right? If you're an individual running Windows 10, I don't believe there's a single change that matters to you that you would want to turn on.
But you can't not do this. I mean,
you can not do it for some amount of time.
Yeah, you can. You can postpone it, right?
What's the defer? Can you defer for more than a month now, or?
But see, this isn't the one you defer. Right? I honestly, I mean, I guess you couldn't do this as an individual, right? Not this much time, but that major update that comes out in the spring, that would be the one to defer. Oh. And when this thing comes out, that's the one you should get, right? Because this is basically, 1903 ++ or whatever. It's they've released several, well, probably more than several cumulative updates addressing security and bug fixes, et cetera. This is the fine-tuned version. They're on the same support path. All of the updates that 1903 gets, they're the same version that goes to 1909. This was the promise of Windows as a service, right? The one version of Windows that we never really got. It's kind of a microcosm of it, or a miniature version of it, but it is the dream, that you only have one Windows and you ship one update for one bug, and that's how it works. I mean, today they ship 7 or 6 updates, whatever it is, for one bug. So that's kind of nice. Mm-hmm. And I like I said, I hope this is the plan. I hope this is it. I hope this is the way they do this going forward.
Yeah. Cross your fingers. So if you do take the 1909 update, you get 30 months of support for that one. If you're enterprise and education, I don't think it's home still, right?
No, it's not.
No. But that's good. That means you could technically just avoid the spring update if you don't want to mess with something that's going to have more new features and you want to stay on something that's more stable and has been tested more. Just stay on the updates that end with 09. Right?
Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. I'm just laughing because it's such a weird. It's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We know the name doesn't match up with the month. 09 implies it was RTM'd in September, which maybe it was.
Did I mention that they announced that it was completed?
Yes. I know. I'm all in with you on this as a win.
Why is that a big deal, though? You got to explain to me.
Because they have never once said, oh, by the way, the code for the latest version of Windows is complete.
Wow.
We have shipped it off to manufacturing or whatever we do these days. They've never said it. Wow. They refuse to say it.
Wow.
And
we brought it up every single time.
What it did by not saying that, it just set off endless speculation. Like you'd see stories being like, oh, I think this is the RTM. This one is the RTM. And then people were like, okay, just tell me when it's done. And then Microsoft wouldn't say it was done.
And for people who listen to this show in particular, who might be in the Windows Insider program or enthusiasts and want to test the next version, et cetera, one of the other bits of confusion or uncertainty around that never admitting that something was done issue is that they would just suddenly start testing the next version in the Insider program. And you could be bumped to the next version of Windows where you might want to get off that train. I used to refer to that.
They weren't opening the window for you.
Right. Paul, talk about the magic window.
Paul's magic window.
The magic window has been nailed shut, or I should say, has been left wide open. I'm loading it so I can just see what it looks like now. But there is now a switch in Windows settings, that says stop getting preview builds. And what's nice about it is you stop getting builds at the time you turn it off. But once that version of Windows is released, you get on that train. You get on the production update schedule. This is
so you don't need the window because Microsoft will do it for you.
That's right.
That's good.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's good. It is good.
I bet they noticed a lot of people doing it, and they said, "Oh, we should really make that."
Well, what happened, of course, was I think it was 1809. Yeah, it would have been 1809. Because I do this for a release, write this article about the magic window. They finalized it. Everything's good. You can get on the production train, and then they had to pull it back.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, so here's what you got to do. Put your computer back on the Insider program. Go into this particular ring, download the one build, and then get yourself out of the Insider. It was like this real stupid process, right? And so by having this switch, you just guarantee that that's not going to happen to you again. If there is a mistake, if something like 1809 does happen again, that will be automatic for you. It's something you don't have to worry about. For the more normal situation, I think a lot of people in the Insider program probably do want to test a particular version of Windows 10. When it comes out, they want to stay there for a little while. Maybe they want to jump in the next version in a few months or whatever it is. They want to enjoy this brief period of stability, God forbid. And there's a nice little switch there. No, it's not. I'm not dumping on it. It's a wonderful change. It's common sense. It's good. Yeah. It's just like them announcing that they finished it. Good.
Yep.
Nice.
It feels weird not having something to complain about, but when you get over that.
Don't worry. You're going to find something else. Don't worry.
No, I'm sure. But no, it's good. I mean, I feel like, for myself, as, perceived as a critic or a complainer or whatever, I complain when there are things that are wrong. It's nice because this is right. And it's nice to be able to say this is a good thing. I don't feel like I get to say that a lot. It's not because of me necessarily. It's because there's been it could be both. But the point is, I'm just happy that things are the way they are right now.
And we're happy, you're happy.
Exactly.
The power's on, the RTM is out,
we're all happy.
Everything's right.
I'm unhappy.
Okay.
I reinstalled Windows the other day, and I was not able to set up a local account. Now, what I've been doing is what Paul has always said, which I love. It was part of your install article.
I have to update that for this problem.
Set up a local account first, because then it doesn't say like Leo's _S computer. You can make it Leo, and then all the directory structure will be Leo, which is a much more sensible structure. And then, if you want, and this is what I would do, I'd sign into my MSA and use that, because I do like the idea of a Microsoft account. But I think there are a lot of people who want a local account only. Yeah, is that gone?
Not exactly. So there is a solution. I guess it's in 1909. I don't know if this is new to 1909 or if it happened in 1903, but people started reporting that when you go through that initial out-of-box experience,
you used to have this option that you can't use.
Yeah, in the bottom left of the dialog, it said something like create an offline account.
Right. In tiny letters. I know they don't want you to do
it. Yeah, it was one shade of blue off from the background. Of it was really hard to see, but it was there. So if you don't see that option, you need to take the computer offline and then run through the process. Okay. If the computer is offline, it will have to give you the option to create an offline account. Then you can put it back online.
They'd have to do that because otherwise you couldn't get in.
Right.
Right.
That's how I did it. That's how I did it before. When I saw your instructions, I just took it offline, did everything.
That makes sense. Yeah, because how could you possibly have a MSA account if you can't get online? It wouldn't be.
It's slightly more ponderous. You have to you want to get online as soon as you can and start downloading the updates and all that stuff. But that will get you by it.
That's the next thing to do. So create the account, then immediately turn on the internet.
Yep.
No more unair gap, whatever that would be.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you said. Yeah.
Unair gap. Okay. Cool. So, are there any new features that one might want to switch on?
So there's very, very few consumer facing features. Most of the things are enterprise that are in this, and they're very obscure enterprise features.
Is it safe to say this is a kind of like a bug fix polish update?
Service pack. They don't want to call it that, but
that's okay. Good, but that's
or
good.
an R2. It's an R2 release.
I like saying that.
When we only had R2s for maybe 2 releases of Windows Server, if I'm not mistaken, but whatever the count was, the point of the R2 was that there was only a handful of new features and they were disabled by default. And if you wanted to put them, so if you would just get it, it would be it's literally this. R2 is the right name for this. Yeah. And if you needed those new features, I remember the branch office feature in Windows Server 2008 R2 maybe, or whatever it was, or 2003, whatever, was in an R2 release, and you had to enable it by default. And then when enable it to get it, and then with the next major version of Windows Server, that feature was just built into this product. But for that first release, it was something you had to go find and turn on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
The one thing, if somebody really is looking for something that's new consumer-wise, is third-party digital assistants can voice activate above the lock screen if you care about talking to your PC.
I think we're going to find that most people don't.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not a Cortana dig. This is third-party assistants. I don't think that if Windows had always had support for Google Assistant or Alexa or whatever, that this would have been any different. I just don't think people.
Yeah.
Direct.
But the other things in here are like Windows Defender Credential Guard for ARM64 devices gets additional protection against blah blah blah. Right? Like, there's a whole list of features, but they're mostly minor and mostly things only your admin will care about, not you as a customer.
Leo, are you running 1909?
I think so, because this was the one where I was. In fact, let me look real quick, because this is the one where I was on the Insider, and then took your advice and got off the Insider by switching that switch. I just had a rebootable update. I don't know if that was patch Tuesday or what.
No, there was an additional.
There was a
thing this week, I think.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no. Was it patch Tuesday this week? Actually, it might have been. No, that could have been patch Tuesday. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So let me Windows X system and device name. It's a nice Go. Have we even talked about the new devices? Oh, I wasn't here, I guess.
You weren't here.
Oh,
I
man,
know.
I wanted to talk to you.
We're going to do a little recap.
Well, we're going to talk about it again.
Okay.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that.
Jeez, Windows 1909, yeah.
All right, so here I'll show you the one feature that is kind of in the UI that you might notice. If you click on the date and time in the bottom right, and the fly up comes out or whatever.
Turn on my camera so you can see this. So I'm going to close that, and then fly. Oh, what am I seeing? I don't even know. Oh, there it is. Okay, date and time.
There you go. So you click that guy.
Yeah.
It says today, and this is add event or reminder. That's new. So in the previous versions of Windows 10,
right there.
So start typing. Type just a couple of letters. And what this will do, it gives you some basic information. So you can see it has a time frame and a location, and then you can click more detail. So in previous versions of Windows 10, that was just a little plus button. You would click it, and the calendar app would open to a new event page.
You can
just do it.
I really like this. Yeah, I actually. Yeah, that's great. Okay, cool.
It's like a quick event, essentially.
Quick event to add to your calendar. Good. Add an event or reminder. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it, huh?
That's it.
That's it.
I know. Well, enjoy it.
Wow.
Yeah, 45 minutes of updating, and now you can create an event right from a flyout.
You know what I just got? I'm so excited. Look at this. The internet on a disk.
Oh, that's good for offline use, like when you have a power outage.
Absolutely. I'm set. Robert Burton, who is the cheap engineer at Audio Rents in LA, sent this to me. He also sent me the top 100 websites. So I have everything I need on these two disks.
That's amazing.
So when the power goes out, it was very thoughtful of him.
It's like an offline version of Yahoo from 1995.
Next time the power's out, it's from 1996. Yeah, 1995. Ziff Davis Publishing.
Woo!
Thank you, Ziff Davis.
Old Ziff Davis, original Z.
Isn't that funny?
Yep.
Yeah, I was.
We should have all done a still frame there, like at the end of The Naked Gun.
Yeah.
I would have been pouring a drink.
The coffee's still going.
Burning me.
So thrilled to have this. This is so great. Now all I have to find is a CD player.
Exactly.
Yep.
Got to find a computer that's thick enough to put a disk into it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you decided, Mary Jo, what you're going to get for your new laptop? Or you? No.
I have not.
I'm gonna
I've been
tell you.
using the HP that Paul loaned me
The
a few months ago.
Spectre X360, the
I know.
13 is going to be incredible.
Yes.
Or that really thin one. What's the name of it? The HP one.
The
that
HP
just,
one. It
got
might
some
have the word
jazzy-
slim in the name, wasn't it?
That looked kind of like something I would like, just because it's really thin and light, and I don't need a lot of anything. Just
It seems like a successor to that previous laptop you were
does
using.
that I
HP.
loved.
Yeah.
The brown one.
Yeah, I love that one too. I still have it.
Yeah.
It's really
Me too.
good.
Yeah, my wife
Yeah.
uses it.
The only thing wrong with it is you can't charge it with any other Type-C charger. You have to use theirs.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, we were so young then.
What,
Things have changed.
what did we know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, good. I was just curious. I like to keep up
Yeah.
on Mary Jo's laptop purchases.
Yeah, I keep I waver back and forth, but I've got to do something soon, because January 2020 is when Windows 7 ends support, and that's what I'm running on my
you
desktop.
were smart to wait, because you're going to get the new Ice Lake chip, probably a 10th generation. That's this new, like that new HP. Man, the battery life supposedly is fantastic.
Yeah,
Maybe the best battery life of them all. It's pretty slim
Yeah.
and light.
yeah. I want to get
Do you ever
a
use,
laptop, a
that-
dock, monitor. That's it.
I was going to say, do you use a dock with the laptop? Have you tried that?
I haven't, because I don't have a monitor.
So you need to buy
Yeah.
a monitor too.
Yeah.
Lisa
I mean, you
has
can-
a 38-inch Dell. It
Oh, wow.
goes forever.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't get it all in your peripheral vision.
It has like an ocean backdrop, and it's like real sized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life-size ocean.
1 inch equals 1 inch.
Yeah. You have to turn your head to look at the opposite corners.
Oh wow!
Like a tennis match.
Yeah.
I don't
it's
think
so
I have
cool.
to fit on my desk. I have kind of a small
Well, it's
desk.
got a little stand, but so it could reach out over your desk. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really cool. It's really nice
Yeah.
because, well, she'll put like 5 spreadsheets side by side. I mean, you can really load it up.
5 notepads right next to each other. This is
Well,
like
I'm thinking you do research. It's not just Notepad.
I do.
You probably have a
I'm
browser open or two. Right?
no, I do. I mostly use a million tabs. I have one browser with a million tabs.
Million
open.
tabs.
Sounds like what you need is a dual screen Neo device that has Notepad on one side and a web browser. on
I
the other.
am so excited about those. I'm so mad that Micah Sargent got to talk with you about that instead of me. But all right.
Well, let's just redo that whole show over
No,
again.
no. We're still talking about Windows.
No, we're going
Come
to talk
on,
more
we'll get there.
about it. We're gonna talk more about it.
What happened to Dona Sarkar? That's terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It's not terrible.
It's
you know
good?
what? So Donna is no longer going to be Windows Insider Chief, but she's not leaving the company. She's going to be running a team doing, quote, citizen developer advocacy.
I hope
So
it's a promotion for her because she's great.
Power Platform. Remember we said this is the biggest bet they're making in the developer space? That's what
Oh,
she's going to be
Well,
doing.
good. That's right.
Yeah.
Good.
So right now, though, there isn't a head of the Insider program, and they're
It's
looking
just like
for
Windows.
I'll do it.
Oh man.
I can push
So many
that
people
button.
have been like, you guys should do it. You and Paul do it together. I'm
Oh.
like, no.
We'd make a big deal about it, like when they ring the bell at the stock market opening. We'd have
Like
Paul and Mary Jo on a balcony.
Mary Jo and I would be like a
We would be
Benny Hill
terrible.
skit. We'd be running around in circles, bumping into each other.
Oh, you'd be terrible.
Keystone
No, they
Commons.
need somebody
Yeah.
in the Windows org who loves builds and gets into dealing with all the crazy people who are insiders out there and likes to interact with them and wants to help.
Yep.
I'm sure there's
In
that
other
person.
words, they need people, a person that likes people, not someone like Mary Jo or I.
Oh,
They would need,
oh,
you know,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. People who like people.
it's like, what are you
Exactly.
doing in my office? I just talked to a human being yesterday.
No.
Yeah, and you know, the timing of this makes sense. 1909 is done.
Yep.
It's time when people can switch jobs.
So,
So-
by the way, just a small theory about this. There is that gentleman, I assume he's a gentleman, Aaron, whatever his last name is, the guy who wrote the post about Windows 10X and then announced that Donna
Oh, yeah,
was
Aaron
leaving.
Magedio,
So this
or however
guy-
you say.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. Never heard of this person, right? I'm between that and this. We just announced that a Windows version was released, which we haven't done in several years. I'm starting to think maybe there's some changes going on here. You know, that this is that Donna leaving is maybe part of a bigger thing that's going on, like a bigger organizational change. As Steve Ballmer just noted this week in a interview, by the way, Windows generates several $billion in profits every quarter. Like, why are we not paying more attention to this?
So I'm going to let you down easy.
I know. She's like, see, if we were in person, she would have literally just thrown a glass of water in my face.
I would have just put my hand on his head and been like, that's cute.
It's so cute when you get ropes up. Yeah.
No,
it's like when my wife and daughter just left and the dog was literally moaning, hoping that she could go. That's what you're saying I am? I'm like that? Like,
Paul, plus, I'm also going to embarrass you. You wrote about Aaron, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Megiddo, becoming the corporate vice president of Windows product. You were the one who wrote this story when this happened a few months ago.
Mary Jo, I can't remember.
I know. I've met him twice now, and he also heads up education strategy.
Oh, so maybe I talked to him in the context of education.
You have. Yeah.
That makes sense.
You know this guy.
Well,
so he's not new. He's not new.
And you would be... And
you look really familiar.
What do you do?
He's been doing this job since May. Around the time of build.
Nobody even knew about it.
So he's new, right? And he's been trying to figure out what's what and just kind of get his feet wet. I think he has not met with us in his Windows role. Not like a Terry interview where you take him to Rattle and Hum and grill him over a beer. That doesn't happen yet.
Wait a minute, that happens? You can get that? You're allowed?
When Terry first took over, Terry Myerson took over Windows, Microsoft wanted to make a big show out of how open he was compared to his predecessor, who shall not be named. So what they did was they took him out and they had me talk to him since I had been on the blacklist. And we went to Rattle and Hum and had a beer and did a little interview there. It was great. It was like a nice start of a new era.
I invited he who could not be named to have dinner at my house when he was in the Boston area. And that didn't happen, as you know, because you didn't see his story about his death by poisoning. But
come on, man.
But, I tried.
If you were him, you wouldn't have gone there either. Into the Thurrott den? No, I would not have.
I don't know. It's friendlier than it sounds.
Anyway, yeah. So that guy, Aaron, E-R-A-N, has been around for a while doing Windows strategy. Okay. But I don't think you should look at Donna switching jobs as Windows is getting more important. I'm sorry.
Okay, fine. Mary Jo, fine.
But Donna's getting more important.
Right. Donna's going to the part of the company where they're really pushing Power Platform, right? And Power Platform is one of their biggest initiatives in the Office 365 part of the company, which, they kind of run the show these days.
Nice.
Is there any of the crushing news you'd like to deliver to me?
I don't know. Can I think of anything
horrible
else?
fashion?
Oh, Paul. So sad.
Oh, boy.
Sorry. But you know what? You're right, though, about Windows making money. And you know what? Their earnings are coming up in a couple weeks for Q1 of their fiscal. And you can bet.
This is a big one.
Windows is going to be doing great.
No, definitely. But for the first time ever, remember last quarter, all three of their major business units generated almost exactly identical revenues. And that has to change. And so it was actually the non-Windows business units that were growing so dramatically. So this will probably be the first time in forever that the business unit responsible for Windows was not right at the top. Since they have had the structure, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's nice. One more thing, we'll do an ad. Your phone in Windows 10 can now make or take phone calls. This is something I use on Apple all the time.
Yeah.
And I love
it's
it.
Nice to have that integrated
because my
kind
phone,
of thing.
my phone will ring. It rings my computer. If I'm at the computer, I could just press accept. It's still going through the iPhone.
Yep.
But I can make the phone call that way, and it's very convenient.
Yeah. So Microsoft's trying to provide this sort of functionality on Windows with Android, right? You can't really do this with iOS, unfortunately. And the Your Phone app, which they probably announced a year and a half ago, something like that, was probably built 2018. Whenever they announced it, I don't remember exactly, obviously, but they've really dramatically increased the amount of the capabilities of that product, and now they're adding this phone calling capability. So I think they announced that feature at the Samsung event in August, and there was some speculation about whether or not it would be just a Samsung feature, but it's going to be available to everybody. So I have not tried this. I don't know if it's tied to the latest Insider build or if it's a general release, but it was announced as part of. Okay.
It was announced as that, but I think everybody who's on 1903 and later are going to be able to start trying this out. So I can even try it out, I think. Oh no, am I still on 1809 on the HP maybe?
So it must be dependent on the phone somewhat. Let me see.
Yeah, Android 7 or greater on the phone.
See, I'm not seeing. I don't see.
You don't see it yet.
I don't see it on mine. I've got 2 phones attached to it, but it's.
I think coming soon.
All right.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Coming soon.
I will stay tuned.
To a theater near you. Can we take a break now?
Sure.
Okay. Our show today, my friends, brought to you by a fine company you've probably heard of before, because we talk about them all the time. ExpressVPN. Now, you know you need a VPN. That's important. You want a VPN that, for a couple of reasons. One, for security, especially if we're going on a cruise. We're going to be in hotels, cruise ships, using the Wi-Fi like crazy. You better believe I'm going to use a VPN because you're on the same network as everybody else on the boat, in the hotel. And by the way, it's notorious. Coffee shops, hotels, the Wi-Fi, the networks there are notoriously poorly configured. So that's one. You want to be protected that way. Not only from people snooping on what you're doing. That's less of a problem these days because Gmail's encrypted and stuff. But as much because they can also see there's your computer. Have you ever gotten on one of those big open access points and you see every other system there? That's not good. That means they can attack your system directly. And I won't go into it, but if you're curious, just check out Hack5's site and the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and just for testing purposes only. It's a cheap device anybody could buy and start hacking at you. The other thing is, I think privacy. No, I said privacy. No, I didn't say privacy. Security and privacy. Privacy is the issue that your ISP and everywhere you go, your carrier, and of course those Wi-Fi hotspots see what you're doing online. They see all your DNS searches, they see your queries, and so they might use that information in fact, we know they sell that information to marketers. There are, places that inject ads into all this stuff nefarious. VPN protects you. It encrypts you and everything you're doing on the internet from your system. I have ExpressVPN on this phone. From this phone through T-Mobile to the VPN servers, because servers all over the world. And you can pick which server, where you want to go. When I just am saying I want speed, I'll come out the server nearest me, and there's always one near you. But if you want to say, I'm coming out into the world in England, and I'll appear to English providers like I'm local, you can do that too, eliminating geographic restrictions. Because, I think, the whole idea is there's no worry. Then I say my ExpressVPN, in the past with a VPN, and maybe you remember the old days when you used VPNs to log into your business. It was always kind of like a pain. You had to set up a proxy. Those settings that you see in Windows where you say, okay, what's your proxy and all? You don't have to do that with ExpressVPN. It's an app. It's on Windows, it's on Mac, it's on iOS, it's on Android, it's on Linux. I use it on Linux. And you press a button, one click. If you want to choose a server at that time, you can, but you don't have to. One click, boom, you're done. And it's so fast, I actually left it on the iPhone the other day and was using it for like 4 days. Completely forgot it was on. I mean, it's that good. Now, I got to tell you, you are absolutely improving privacy and security, but the key is you're just kicking the can down the road. It's very important who you choose to do your VPN, because they see everything the open Wi-Fi access point would see, or your internet service provider. In effect, they become your ISP, so they can see it all. So you want a VPN that promises, that pledges, we will not log, we will not watch, we will not do anything. Furthermore, you want them independently audited. ExpressVPN just went through a third-party audit about a month ago. They said, yep, thumbs up. ExpressVPN also, just to make you feel better, uses something called the trusted server. It's basically a server in a container. It can't write to the hard drive. It runs in RAM, and as soon as you leave, the RAM is cleared. There is no record of your visit at all. And we know that because authoritarian governments like Turkey have seized ExpressVPN servers trying to get somebody, and there's nothing on there. There's nothing on there. And this third-party audit, by the way, said trusted server and their privacy policy are 100% what they say. So it's fast. It's reliable. It's number one recommended by TechRadar and CNET. I say it's the one I use. I don't know. What more could you look for? It's a great price, too. In fact, we've got an even better deal. We can get it down under $7 a month. If you go to expressvpn.com/windows, you'll get 3 months free with their 1-year package. That's the best deal. That's how I usually do it, just every year, renew. expressvpn.com/windows. 3 months free with a 1-year package. I think it gets it down to $6.67. Don't be exploited by flaws like crack, the key reinstallation attack the next time you're on Windows. I mean on Wi-Fi. expressvpn.com/windows. It's the number one VPN in my mind, number one in the world, and I think the one you should be using. All right, back to...
So, Leo,
yes.
Before we move on to the next topic,
yes.
Mary Jo has been busy rubbing my face in my previous reporting. And I should mention that in May, I did report that I viewed some internal documentation stating that Aaron Megiddo had been promoted to corporate vice president of Windows and Education, focusing on Windows client direction and strategy, and reporting to Joe Belfiore.
It's not your fault, Paul. You do a lot of things.
It looks like something I wrote. You know, it reads like me. It's
not your fault.
I probably did write it. My name is attached to it.
It's not your fault.
By the way, I will say, interestingly, it does say that he and the Windows team have 3 goals for the near future. I wrote this, I guess. Create clarity around Microsoft's strategy for Windows, better manage cross-device experiences between Windows and mobile, and continue pushing Windows in education. Well, yeah. So there they are being cleared. They're already coming through on job 1 there.
Yep.
Building clarity. So thanks, Mary Jo. Yeah. Maybe during the next commercial break,
you could tell us where Paul lives, who his wife is, and what his favorite beverage is. I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
You like the color green.
Windows Virtual Desktop is gah.
We need a vuvuzela right now.
Well, don't say anything.
How does he have one at hand?
It's not exactly trumpets.
No. It's even worse than a bugle.
Kind of is.
It's like, what if,
I was looking for something
like a
more
bugle's like
elaborate.
1 note. What if we had less than a note?
I probably have a fanfare here somewhere. Here, let me just. I think Scott Wilkinson's in here. He can play. Oh, it's broken. Oh, I'm getting triangles on everything. Oh.
You get the idea anyway. Yeah.
Is there some kind of string you could pull and have confetti fall down? Or?
There used to be.
Before we went to the Surface event last week, I said to Paul, this is the biggest news of the week. Like, this thing is huge, right? Windows Virtual Desktop finally generally available.
Your world
Why is it big?
Really, really awesome.
It's huge. Right? No, it's big. Windows Virtual Desktop is what lets you virtualize Windows 7 and 10, Office 365 ProPlus apps, third-party apps, using this new Azure-based virtualization service. It's like Microsoft had all these attempts before now to figure out VDI and how you can virtualize things, and made some missteps, had to pull products back, working with Citrix, then they weren't, then they are again.
Mistakes were made.
By the way, you know what triggered all this? You know what the original trigger for this was?
What?
It was, I got to try not to swear here, sorry. It was Sun Microsystems and Oracle and that stupid NetPC thing. And they've been working on this ever since those guys literally uttered the phrase, the network is the computer. And Microsoft was like, no,
it's not.
we will stop this. And they've been trying to do this ever since.
I know.
That's me.
So if you're on Windows 7 and you're not going to be ready to go to 10 when the end of support happens, and you happen to be somebody who wants to virtualize your workloads instead, now you've got a solution. And if you do it that way, you get free extended security updates for Windows 7 for 3 years as part of that. It's a big deal, I'm telling you.
It's nice. Yeah.
But the part I'm most interested in about this, and I don't understand it well enough to really explain it, but I can tell this is a big deal, is this technology called App Attach. It's officially called MSIX App Attach. And this is something Microsoft talked about at Build, and it's going to be introduced into the Windows client in 20H1, I believe. So insiders will start testing this pretty soon. But it lets you take MSIX packaged applications and store them outside the virtual machine so that apps get attached when users need it. And Microsoft's saying this will make things work much more smoothly and quickly if developers do buy in. And just make it
feel. Are they on the local
apps,
system?
They're not really on your local system. They're stored, I believe, in Azure somewhere, but it makes it look to you like it's on your system.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If you want to know more about how that works, there's a really good Microsoft Mechanics video about this that you can find by just looking up App Attach and MSIX, and you'll find that video. It explains it quite well.
Our fine sponsor.
Oh, right. Sorry.
You don't have to say it. That's my job.
No, they're great too, right?
They are. Yeah.
Mr. Chapman and so forth. That's good.
But yeah, this is big. It's going to become very important. And Paul has said this a few times on the show. This is kind of a peek into where Microsoft's going with Windows, right? Virtualize all your apps and your workloads and your operating system. And
are you sure I said that, Mary Jo?
I could probably look up your article where you said this if you would.
She's like, I found the exact place where you did say it.
I feel like it's come up on the show a few times, but this is a very big deal, and you're going to be able to buy this through Microsoft Cloud solution providers, as well as direct from Microsoft, I believe. Windows Virtual Desktop.
Whoa!
Woohoo!
Da, 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 da. Stupid Catalina screwed up my sound effects. Aw. Some sort of permissions thing. I hate it when you need permission. Do things on this stupid computer. Okay, sorry. Moving along. Microsoft hardware event. Oh, good. We get to talk about, you guys, you had to analyze it like the day after the event.
Yeah.
I think now, a week later, in hindsight, you probably have some other thoughts. I think question number one is, Mary Jo, why aren't you buying a Surface laptop?
Yes, Mary Jo. Let's investigate that a little further.
Question number one.
Where were you on the evening of October?
It's thin. It's light. It's lappable.
Let's see if it's lappable. But I would like to try out Surface Laptop 3 if Microsoft is listening. I only get to try out the first generation Surface laptop, and I was not a huge fan. But now there are going to be two versions for consumers. There's going to be an Intel and an AMD. The AMD is the 15-inch one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they took the fuzzy Alcantara off as a forced thing, and now it's an option. So that's good. And I actually, at the event, got to put the 15-inch AMD one on my lap, and it felt really nice, super light. But I'm not.
We were literally walking out the door, and Brad turns around and he goes, "What is Mary Jo doing?" And we look back.
I went over there and I'm like,
"Can I try a Surface laptop on her lap?"
Oh, that's so funny.
It literally has the word "lap" in its name.
Yeah,
of course
that doesn't mean anything for Microsoft. No, it doesn't.
Well, the Surface Book wasn't because it was so heavy. Top heavy.
Top heavy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But this is not. This is more like a regular laptop. But I thought it was beautiful. It's thin. It's light.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep. All of the above. Really nice looking.
Is the AMD chip, is that in there so they can keep the price down? Why are they using AMD?
Yeah, they didn't say it that way.
The graphics too, right?
It does have better graphics than
the way they
Intel.
basically said it was. They have this 13-inch device. It has a certain performance characteristic to it. They want to move it up to a bigger screen. How do they retain that without making, without changing everything? And I think it would have been prohibitively expensive to go the Intel route, or they couldn't have handled the graphics in that form factor.
Right.
And the AMD, it just worked out. It's a smaller part.
It's also an older part.
But what they're looking for is that consistent experience, right? So it's sort of like the thing that Apple did with the iPhones, where the different modems were there, but they made the faster modem slow down so that it worked like the other one. I think it's like that. They just wanted it to be. The only difference is when you move from machine to machine that you perceive is the bigger screen.
It's kind of the right way to approach it. Is it's a black box. That's Apple really wants it to be that way.
That's what they said. I actually think it has to do with a few other things. The price, like you mentioned, and also this notion of diversity of suppliers. Microsoft put Windows 10 on ARM specifically because at that time AMD was circling the drain, in someone's words. And they wanted to hedge against Intel. And I think now that AMD is rebounding somewhat, they can spread the love a little bit. And that's the right thing for them to do, really, right? I mean, these companies are all their partners. If it makes sense, they should try to do that as much as possible.
Paul, are you happy? Go ahead.
What we found out afterward, though, is Microsoft has the Surface for Businesses program. And in that program, if you buy the new Surface Laptop 3s, you don't get the choice of AMD. You only get Intel on both the 13-inch.
I'm going to make a guess that's about vPro and the management engine.
Yeah,
and
could be.
Actually, that came up, but at the event. To date, I don't remember when this started. Microsoft either never has or did not in the previous gen use vPro on their devices. Oh. So I don't. Yeah, that's an open question. That was one of the.
But there may be some sort of IT management facilities in the Intel SoC that they don't get with AMD.
Yeah, that could be.
That would, that's the kind of thing you'd expect, to be honest, when you see something like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They didn't really say why. Yeah. They just said, these are the business configurations. Here they are.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
Actually, I think at the event, I didn't even know this at the event. I don't believe I found this out until afterwards.
Same. I didn't find it out till a day later. Yeah. They didn't bring it up. But yeah, I'm interested in that device.
I spec'd out a Surface Pro X.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got it very close to $2,000 and decided not to pull the trigger. I thought, I'll let Paul review this.
Yeah, it's the value proposition on that one is a little strange. Obviously, it's the next gen Surface Pro design, and when you put it
it's not a Go replacement so much as
it's a Pro. It's literally the next Pro design. So the Surface Pro 7, which is the traditional Pro, looks like the traditional Pro. It's got huge bezels. It's relatively thick. I mean, compared to the Pro X. With the Pro X, it's so thin that it's USB-C is the only port that can fit on it, and they have to put the power connector up high because where the kickstand comes out from the base, that area is so thin they actually they don't even have room for that connector. So they have to make sure that connector's up higher than that. But we talked about this a little bit last week, I'm sure. But the issue there is obviously it's ARM. It's a custom version of ARM.
That's why I didn't want to buy a pig in a poke.
Yeah.
But Mary Jo, we have a thing about the developer story. No, this is not related to the developer story. This is about the 64-bit app thing. I asked Mary Jo this morning something about 64-bit Intel apps on ARM and whether her understanding was that the limitation was technical or whether it was some kind of a weird licensing, something, whatever it was. And in researching that, I discovered that it is technical. I do recall when ARM was first announced on Windows 10 that they have a Windows on Windows subsystem. One thing people probably don't understand is that 32-bit apps running on a 64-bit chip in the Intel world are actually emulated. But the emulation occurs in the hardware on the chip. So it's full speed. You don't notice it because there's nothing to notice. But when you do it on ARM, it runs in software, so it's a lot slower. And of course, there are chipset differences, register differences, and so forth. The architectures between ARM and x86 are completely different. So first gen, second gen ARM chips running x86 apps, it was pretty slow. It was really, really slow, actually.
Yeah, no, I had that MVX2 to prove it.
Yep. Right.
So I didn't want to do it again. Not for $2,000.
Yeah. So what Qualcomm has said for the 3rd gen chip, which is that ATX, where we're going to see the first machines coming out any day now, is that thing supposedly runs as fast as an Intel Core i5. Now, we don't know what gen they were talking about, whether they meant like the dual core or the quad core version. But I was always a little suspicious of that claim because you could do something where you get benchmark speeds or something that are like the same.
Right.
But the real world implications of running emulated code, I don't know if that was a real apples to apples thing.
That's an excellent point. You can optimize for Geekbench and get the same score as an i5.
Yeah, and there you go. You're like, look, it's an i5.
But is my problem is, Photoshop going to run like that? Probably not.
Right. So here's the thing that the result of this. I didn't talk to Mary Jo about this. I'm sorry to spring this to you live, but I but after what you did to me earlier, I kind of I actually think this is really interesting. So Microsoft is working with Qualcomm to make a custom designed version of its ARM chipset for Windows that is designed to eliminate some of the performance problems. And the inference there is that the HCX isn't enough, right? Like if it was, they would never need to do this. But what is the thing they're trying to fix? Like, in other words, what is it about the Qualcomm ARM chipset that isn't solving the problem for Windows? It's the 64-bit thing, right? I think that this is the first step toward them emulating 64-bit Intel code. I think that's where this is headed.
Interesting.
Because the story before was this is not possible.
Right.
The story at the event we went to was never say never.
Huh.
And that was from the engineer guy. That was from the chip guy. So
that's interesting.
Right. This is a theory, but based on the conversations we had just last week and the thing I asked you this morning and the resulting things that I read, I hate to say it's like clear to me, but I literally don't. She's making a face, but I don't know this to be a fact. But I believe that that's what this is.
Huh? They did mention. Well, they did say at the event the reason they did the custom chip with Qualcomm is because of emulation. They did say emulation, I believe, but they didn't say 64-bit. 64-bit.
Right. So
I took it as speeding up. I took it as speeding up the existing emulation, not
that's exactly
giving
right.
them
right.
I took it as just wanting to look more like Apple. But we can make
there's part of that too. So, but we can talk about that a little bit. There were, I do, the whole, if you're serious about software, you have to make hardware thing. I think people oversimplify that. In other words, Microsoft ships a computer and it's like, see, we're serious about software. We're making hardware. No. I think it's about the hardware component stuff. And the more unique hardware components you have, the more you differentiate yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So Microsoft is absolutely doing that. They're never going to become a chip fab company, but they are working with literally all three of the top three chip fab companies.
But what Apple did 10 years ago, they bought PA Risk. They bought a chip design, chip company. They have, I'm told, more than 1,000 engineers working on chip designs. Apple bought into this and has spent 10 years doing it. It's not the kind of thing you could say, well, we can do a chip here. We'll glue that onto that and that. And no,
of course. Microsoft can't do that because the primary market for Microsoft in hardware is PCs. So that's Intel is older than Microsoft, and they're a humongous company. I mean, AMD is, probably not a humongous company, but they're a big company. Qualcomm obviously is their own thing, whatever. So they can partner with these guys. That's fine. But the SH1 chip that ships in the Pro X, I have no doubt that the short-term and actual real-world performance benefit is literally run Intel-style code more efficiently or better, offer better. There's no doubt about it. But I think the SH2, 3, whatever, I think the end game here is we need to add registers, we need to add capabilities, we need to make this thing be able to run, because you could make a WoW 64-bit x80, x64 emulator on ARM. You could. It would run slower than molasses. But maybe if they change the chips enough and make that thing run on the chip, which is how it works in the Intel world, that's where it becomes viable. So, the story right now for devs is, look, we really want you to recompile for ARM64. The reality is Microsoft knows very few devs are ever going to do that. So they'll just do it for them. They'll just let it run. By the way, this would solve a billion problems. It's not just apps. This is how you could get drivers on those systems.
Yeah, good point.
So I think, again, I'm speculating, but this morning as I was reading this stuff, I was like, this is kind of coming together here. I think these things might be related.
I think you're out on a limb there, but let's find out.
And Mary Jo's got the saw.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's interesting. So there are a lot of reasons Microsoft want to do this. Lawn Dog asks in the chat room, isn't the real goal to modernize and replace the x86 architecture? It's so old. It's so it does feel like it's time to do that. Even Intel wanted to do that with Itanium and change their minds.
Of course. But job one, though, is you got to get that user base.
Got to be compatible.
Stuff they have.
Yep.
When Apple moved to OS 10, they had to make sure there was a way to get those legacy apps on the new thing. If Microsoft, when Microsoft went to NT, that thing didn't take off until it could run all of the Windows apps and then the Windows drivers as well, right? Remember, that was the big leap that occurred in, I think, Windows 2000. So this is for ARM to be a viable platform. It has to not only do the things that are special to ARM, super long battery life, instant on connectivity, et cetera, it has to be able to run the old stuff. And Microsoft has many examples of them half-hearting this kind of thing and it not working because it didn't run those desktop apps that people really care about.
Yeah, it was even more so for Microsoft than Apple. This is key to their business.
Bill Gates said this. I've been rewatching this stuff because I'm writing that article series. I think it was PDC 2000. He said, moving an entire user base forward to a new platform is really hard. You have to do it in stages. And that was what they did with NT, like I just described. I think that might be what they're trying to do with ARM. And again, we just talked about how Microsoft wants to diversify their the hardware that they use. This would be a way to to lessen their reliance on Intel, which is today's 90-something%, right, of the Windows PC base.
It's a very interesting world. I'm excited.
It just came up this morning.
So you're going to get one of these, right?
I hope so. Hope to review all of the stuff. Yeah.
I'm
not
just
going to
waiting.
buy one, but
I wouldn't mind getting one. I like that form factor. I bought the Surface Go because I like the form factor. I love the idea of the pen nestled deep within the keyboard.
Yeah, that slim pen thing was a great idea to add to that.
I think that's a great idea. It's a very nice portable device, LTE.
It's a beautiful machine. I
if
suspect
performance is i5, then I would get it
sometime later.
Battery life 13, right?
Yeah, that's part of the ARM thing. That's
the problem with the Surface Pro 10 is that for that device specifically, because it's pen based, it's naturally you're going to get the creative types that would want to use that thing. Those guys are Adobe CC users.
Has to be performant.
Well, those apps don't work on this machine.
Oh, they don't work at all.
Yeah. So I've been told in the past week that Adobe does, in fact, make 32-bit versions of their apps available for some kind of manual download. You can go find them. When I looked at them, they're not recent versions of the apps. They're really old versions. They switched to 64-bit 4 or 5 years ago, completely, something like that. So these things are not completely up to date. And Microsoft said at their events, the Photoshop being 64-bit is a problem for sure. But the bigger problem, even if they could get Photoshop running, is the plugins and stuff that people use are also 64-bit. So if you have a 32-bit version of Photoshop, like an old version, you might not be able to use the plugins that you rely on as well. So it's kind of a multi-layered issue.
Yikes.
Yeah. We'll see. It's interesting. I think that thing is thin and light and cool enough that early adopter types will buy it, and executive types that want to be seen with something cool and new.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes of that. I obviously the Pro form factor is the most successful by far. I think Pro accounts for something like off the top of my head, I think it's 65% of all Surface devices in use, and when you tack on the Surface 3 and the Surface Go, it's like 83%. So the vast majority of Surface users have chosen that basic form factor. So it's no wonder they want to kind of innovate there, because that's really worked out well for them.
Yeah. It's interesting. Now, a couple other things. I do want to get the Duo and Neo in. Do you want to? Apparently, Surface Book 2. So Surface Book 2 are there going to be a 3 soon? Later?
Yeah.
How about Surface Studio 3? Yeah. What is the?
At some point. I bet, I bet when they have a spring hardware event, when they show Surface Hub 2X, they'll announce Surface Book 3. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Because they're a little out of cadence, right? Because the Surface Studio came out later. Right?
Well, yeah.
We haven't heard anything about Studio. right? About a refresh on Studio.
Well, no, I asked about. I was told vaguely that both were coming.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Brad heard specifically on Surface Book 3 that it was the same form factor. It was just an internal update. He even thought it was possible it would ship before the end of the year. I don't see that happening, but that might not be a big deal. The nice thing is right now, across the board, they have USB-C on everything, right? So they finally.
Are you happy with how they did that? Is that what you were looking for?
No. Well, you know what? I have to. I'm gonna. This will be.
I want Thunderbolt 3. And by the way, the Intel chips they're using have support.
I know. I know. I'm trying. So I've been pushing Microsoft to adopt Thunderbolt 3 since 2016, literally 2016, right? We know that Apple did this across the board that year, I think it was. The first Pixel book had USB. Was it Thunderbolt 3 or just USB-C? Well, the rest of the premium part of the PC industry for sure has gone Thunderbolt 3. The thing is, when you think about, these are portable computers, right? So the primary use case, the most common scenario that virtually anyone who buys any of these computers would ever need could be covered by USB, right? The only additional thing that they would get from Thunderbolt 3, I guess it would be two things. It would be throughput. If you had Thunderbolt 3 compatible storage, you could get faster throughput. And the other one, of course, is two 4K displays at 60 frames, or 60 hertz, I guess. And I don't think most people need that. I don't think most people are going to open a Surface laptop and have two 4K displays connected at the same time with this internal display. Like I just don't think that's a big use case. So for me, this is the type of thing, like I try to tell other people when they're doing this, and I've been doing it myself, which is you kind of hold up this vague ideal as a thing, and it's not really important compared to what the real world needs are, you know? So yeah, I mean, I still sort of feel like they should have it, but I think for most people it just doesn't matter. And I think they're going to go kicking and screaming into it whether they want to or not, because USB 4 is just going to be that. So they'll have to do it eventually.
Right. My use case is, in fact, that I have my laptop. When I get home, I want to plug it into a Thunderbolt 3 external drive, back it up or whatever, and then unplug. But, I have spent USB 3 one's pretty fast. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, so right now I'm just using a NUC through a USB. It's a USB-C hub, or I guess a dock, or whatever this thing's got, whatever it is. So the display is going through it. All my peripherals, the microphone, everything's going through. It's fine. And the nice thing about the setup is I can pop on a laptop instead of the NUC, and it all pretty much works. I had really bad compatibility problems with the Thunderbolt 3 version of the dock, or a Thunderbolt 3 dock, right? So I don't know. Also,
I'm glad you've calmed down. You've calmed down a lot about Thunderbolt.
The drugs help, and then
that's good. Patch Tuesday cocktails also.
Right.
I don't know. I have Thunderbolt 3 external drives. I like Thunderbolt 3. I want that.
Oh yeah, no, the throughput's amazing.
I want 40 gigabytes
40
a second.
40 gigs. Yeah, 40. Yeah.
And even USB 4 is not that fast. So.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, that's a power user.
Is, I can buy a ton of laptops that have it.
I know.
In fact, virtually all laptops with 8th generation Intel processors and later have it.
Yeah, I know.
So it puts them in a little bit of a disadvantage.
The problem with the PC world, not the problem, there are many problems, but one of the big problems of the PC world is you could arbitrarily pick up any laptop, and you look at the ports on the side. Back in the day, remember, you'd have like a USB 2 port and then a USB 3 port, and they'd have different colors maybe if you were lucky. But you could pick up, now they all have USB 3 or 3.1 or whatever it is, and one of them is always on, but one of them isn't. Or one of them, or you have a thing with USB ports, and one of them is only for power, and one is for Thunderbolt, and one is just USB-C.
That's very confusing.
We can't, as an industry, we just can't be consistent.
Yeah.
Apple, at least when they do it, they're like, look, all of the ports are the same, and they all do the same thing.
That's true.
I say what you will about Apple, but that's like one thing they really, really get right.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're a single manufacturer. I bet you could point at somebody, HP or whatever, and say, well, they're very consistent. Right?
No, but they're not actually.
Somebody must be.
Literally, HP is not consistent.
Lenovo's pretty consistent.
No, they're not.
They're not?
I'll use here's one for Lenovo.
Okay.
So Lenovo has across the ThinkPad lineup X1. Let's do X1.
Yep.
They'll have different types of USB and Thunderbolt ports based on a docking configuration that they have on some machines, but not on others.
Yeah.
They just came out with the new ThinkBook line. There's one USB-C port on it. Doesn't do Thunderbolt 3.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, the power comes through a proprietary port. They can't even use USB-C for power.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's, and by the way, in whatever case, like someone has made this decision, like we can save 5 cents per unit if we go with Thunderbolt or USB-C over Thunderbolt or some version of USB-C that does this and this and this, but not power delivery. Guys, just use one.
Yeah.
It's maddening.
Yeah, I wish everybody
So
did
this
power
is-
delivery, but you can't.
this is
Yeah,
the
you
dark
could have
side.
I think you can have one port do it all. I don't.
You can.
You can on a Mac,
Absolutely.
as you said.
Yeah.
You can on a Mac, so
can.
that must be possible.
Oh, it's possible. My point is, you have to really pay attention.
Yeah.
At
Of course, in a
purchase-
Mac, you only have the 2 ports.
Right.
They're-
Sure, okay.
they're-
Or 4, depending on
or 4, and they're all the same. They only so it's
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not saying it's perfect, but this is that thing where you go into the supermarket and there are 170 different kinds of
it's confusing.
sauce or dressing
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
At some point, all that choice becomes a confusion.
Yeah. Which avocado do I want?
Yeah.
The one
want
with
the
the little
right-
brown stem that's not too squishy.
Is that a Haas? I
You
can't
gotta
ever
squeeze
remember.
it like it's a little baby.
Yeah. All right,
but
we're gonna
back to Surface Book 2. We should just mention this, guys.
hold on. Yes, because this is why I'm never buying a Surface Book ever. Microsoft.
Well,
ever.
hold on, they fixed it.
They
Yeah.
fixed it. So if you
Okay.
had the disappearing GPU and CPU throttling issues, the fixes are out. They're firmware fixes, and they're rolling out now. Finally.
What that means is,
Yes.
if you have Microsoft's flagship laptop, you can now install a version of Windows 10 that came out 6 months ago. See, you thought the cynical Paul was gone for good.
No, I knew
never.
it was still around.
No, but you're right, Paul. And the thing is, I didn't buy the Surface Book 2 because you and I both had the same problems for a year with the Surface
Yeah,
Book
the
1.
first one was tough.
You can't keep doing this, or people will stop looking at your brand as a choice.
If you ever see a story about my house burning down, you can tie it back to an original gen Surface Book that's sitting in a box in my cellar
Bursts into flames.
that hot bagged it and just like exploded. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Our show today brought to you by Capterra. Then we'll get to the Neo Duo and Xbox, the big 3. But first, if you're in business, so many of our listeners know what I'm talking about here, and you're still using XP or 7 because the software your business uses won't run anything newer, or you're still using Internet Explorer 8. Oh, I know. I feel your pain. I've been there. I know. But there is a better way. There is modern software for any business that's out there. Great software, modern, state-of-the-art, runs on modern machines. You don't have to suffer with it breaking down. It's like you're stuck with an old, Trabant, a Soviet Union era car, because the boss's nephew Joey wrote it 20 years ago, and now he's gone, and the whole office runs on it. Go to Capterra. Capterra is the leading free online directory of business software. 700 categories of software, every kind of software, CRM, email management, marketing, digital workplace, plus line of business software for every kind of conceivable business, from yoga studios to mortuaries. They have it. You can go to Capterra. You can say, I need this. Narrow it down. There's so many programs on there, thousands, that you will almost certainly, no matter what you're looking for, find more than a few. You can narrow it down. You say, I only want 5-star ratings. I want to be able to run it on premises, or I want to run on the cloud. I want this many seats, whatever it is you're looking for. You can even make a side-by-side comparison chart, like the magazines do, so you can see all the features side by side, and then the best part kicks in. More than 1 million reviews So you've got everything you need right there to make an informed decision. Those reviews are the gem, the gemstone in the crown of Capterra. It's incredible. The reviews are validated, so you can be sure that they're real users. You can be confident with your purchase. And since it's free, Capterra is free. That's one of the reasons I think they get 1,000 new reviews every single day. Millions of people use it every month. And I think the reason they get so many reviews is because people go, "Thank you. I'm gonna pay it forward. I'm gonna review a product." So leave a review if you've got an opinion, good or bad. Leave a review. But do whatever you do. Join the millions of people who use Capterra every month to find the right tools for your business. Capterra believes that software makes the world a better place because software can help every organization become a better version of itself. It's true. Capterra.com/Windows. Try it for free today. Find the tools to make an informed decision for your business and get rid of that nephew Joey software. You don't need that. CAPTERRA. That's the name. It's trademarked. CAPTERRA.com/Windows. Capterra is software selection simplified. And they are a great sponsor. We appreciate their support of Windows Weekly and all of our shows this year and into 2020. Hello, Paul Thurrott. Hello, Mary Jo Foley.
Hello, Leo.
I am so mad at Microsoft because they did announce something so cool, and then they said not till Christmas next year.
Yeah.
But I'm really intrigued. I think I'll buy both. I think.
What do you think about them pre-announcing this so far in advance?
I don't get it.
Well, they said they did it because they need developers to be on board.
Also because it kind of had leaked, and I think they were tired of all the Courier, and Andromeda, and the speculation for years about dual. I don't know.
Well, we did. Remember, we speculated. We talked about this event a lot ahead of the event and about the things we expected to hear, and that, this at least the Neo was one of the things we discussed as a possibility, and then as it got closer, more of a certainty, I guess. But
kudos, though. Kudos, because they kept the phone completely quiet. So quiet but Ant and Micah, who were doing our coverage of the stream, Panos Panay gets to the end of talking about the Neo and says, "Thank you very much." They go to commercial.
Right.
Yeah.
Before he says one more thing.
Yep.
There were two more things.
There were two more things, yeah.
Because you don't want to copy Apple,
Right.
So I think them going back into phone. Now, they say it's not a phone, right?
Leo, they introduced it with the sound of a ringtone.
It's a phone.
They did. Right. So do you remember when we first heard about Andromeda and we wrote a lot about it? We kept calling it a dual screen Windows device that has telephony capabilities.
Oh,
that's how it was leaking.
Do you think this is it?
That is how it was leaking. So this is the Andromeda hardware, very, very likely, but it's not Andromeda because Andromeda was supposed to be a Windows phone.
Right. This is Android. That's what's really interesting about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why you can't not call it a phone. But, I mean, how many years have they been telling us there will be no Surface phone?
I know. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but do you remember this, Leo? About a month after build, Paul and I were on the show, and we said we had both heard rumors that Microsoft was trying to make an Android phone, and we both kind of poo-pooed it. We were like, there's rumors.
Were talking about this.
Actually, I didn't poo-poo it. I poo-pooed it in the sense that I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah, same.
But I was told there were people that were powerful enough to push this thing through.
I poo-pooed it. I said, "Oh no, they're thinking about Samsung. They're just going to do a Samsung phone with Microsoft."
Well, right. But of course, I was thinking a phone, like just a phone, like a Microsoft
this is
branded
not a phone exactly.
Yeah, it's not that, and
it's
I think
a device.
That's a different.
It's a new category.
Yeah, so that part of this was very surprising to me. So.
Although they showed it, people holding it to their head
they did.
to answer phone calls.
But it's Leo. It's not a phone. It doesn't matter. So,
I'm excited. I think this might be exactly what the next phone should look like.
Mm-hmm. Do you really?
Yeah.
I think
it's the same
form factor
did you
makes
play
more
with
sense
it,
for a phone.
or did you get a chance to touch it?
We didn't get to
we
hold
just got to see it.
But it would fit in my jacket pocket, right? It wouldn't fit probably in my breast pocket.
Yeah, it wouldn't fit in your the front of your jeans pocket or whatever. But
5.6-inch screen.
So folded together, it's just like a thick, regular phone,
like a book, like a.
It didn't look that thick when we saw it. Like it was a reasonable size.
Is it reasonable to think that what you saw though will look anything like the product that will come out?
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah. I think so.
They've said that. They said
That's
that on
the
the record.
industrial
They said
design.
the hardware's not really going to change.
Okay. Was there a camera on it?
Yeah, except that has to change, right?
That's really funny. So it's funny how many people have latched onto that.
Well, yeah,
It can't be. If this device does not come out with an excellent rear-facing camera, it's not going to succeed.
I agree.
It's not.
I agree.
No, I think that's the, so it's hard not to say, look, you had Nokia.
I know.
And you had probably
but-
the best camera phones on the market at
Yeah.
the time.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
And you told all your users of Windows phones to go to Apple or a third-party Android phone. You already shipped them all out and shipped them off.
Yeah. Satya Nadella was on stage at the Samsung event.
I think that's part of the reason they're trying not to call this a phone, right? They don't want to
What?
for further anger people that they've already, pushed off the platform.
But come on, dude. If you release a phone, not calling it a phone is saying, look, here's a duck, but don't call it a duck.
Exactly.
Leo, this is a company that markets a tablet as a laptop. Come on.
No, that's a good point. That's a good
They can
point.
market a phone as something else.
So would it have a SIM? Would it be on a network?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
phone.
It has Android.
Yep.
Now,
Android and the Google Play Store.
one thing I have to point out, though, Android has historically not been great on tablets.
Right.
Right.
Even Google's own Android tablet was a flop because apps don't size themselves well. So that may be why
Well, they
announced
can.
it.
It's just that a lot of them don't, right?
It's in
So other
it's in the
words-
development tools.
Yeah. For whatever reason, on iOS and now iPadOS, I guess, some large group of developers has taken it upon themselves to go to the effort to make those things look and behave differently on an iPad.
Yeah.
And you can really tell the difference when you go
yeah.
between Android and iOS.
Yeah.
And for some reason on Android, this has not happened a lot. It's happened with some, like Microsoft Office apps, like the primary apps on Android large screen, by and large, look pretty good. Not so much Outlook, but Word, PowerPoint, Excel actually look better on a big screen, as they would. But that's a problem with the platform. But there's questions around, is Microsoft doing something that goes beyond the dual screen or folding screen support that Google has already built into Android, right? And if so, how does that get packaged for developers? What's the
Well,
the
maybe
developer story there?
maybe it's a dual push because that could be why they announced this a year ahead of time. Is one, they're going to push, and we know Google's going to push, and other companies, Samsung has the Fold, and then Xiaomi. There's other companies, so maybe they figure the time is right. Google's going to push.
Well,
and it's not that you're going to push for a foldable phone. What you're going to push for is developers just to use the tools they already have to make sure their apps will size appropriately. And remember, they're very clear. It's not, you're not going to open it up and have one app go across the middle, right? It's always going to be two
probably
screens. You could, but you have a thing in the middle.
Yeah.
I know.
It sounds
Leo,
like
the thing in the middle is on purpose. That helps you focus. Didn't you hear that?
I
part
know.
of
I
the
laugh. Maybe I don't laugh. Oh, that's what that does.
I took great exception.
Focus on the thing in the middle is what it makes you do.
That's what's called, it's called making lemonade.
Yeah.
When life hands you two lemons with a metal bar between them, you stir the lemonade.
I will defend them a little bit because it does make a clear statement. No, this is not a one folding screen. Right. This is two screens. Think of it that way so that you use it kind of that way.
You know what? So
Like
you're right.
Like a book.
The thing is, that's an artificial limitation. That's a technological issue. In other words, if we had folding screen technology that worked and was super reliable today, Microsoft would have used that for sure. It's not like having a dividing line between the two screens is desirable. It's just that's the situation. The resulting device will be more reliable than a Samsung Fold. Of course it will, right? It's just two screens. But whether this makes sense from a usage standpoint, I mean, people are already, people who just get excited about tech because they get excited about tech are excited about tech. It's, well, I mean, I'm still curious what.
No, that's why I'm excited. Absolutely. You nailed it. I mean, really, that is why I'm excited.
It looks
it's cool.
amazing,
it's
right? You're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with
use
it,
it.
but it looks cool. Right.
Well, we just joked about Mary Jo can run Notepad on one side and a web browser on the other.
But if it's 5.6 inches, it's actually, that's what I've got to get my head around. It's smaller.
It is. It's almost like a square, right? when you see it. It doesn't look like a long rectangle.
Would you call it
like a square.
a 3x2 type square, Mary Jo?
Yeah, I would.
Is it 3x2?
Like a surface? No, I'm not sure if it's exactly 3x2.
No, we don't
know.
I think they said it's 5.6 and it opens to 8 as a single pane.
Which they should never say because that's not a single pane.
I know, but you know what I mean. Like when you open it.
So I'm trying to
like
imagine. So it wouldn't be like two smartphones. That's kind of what the Galaxy Fold is two smartphones, and then you open it up.
Two
and it's
stubby smartphones side by side.
So
like chop off the top quarter of each of those.
Yeah, that may be too small.
Well, no, I mean from the shape.
Little.
In other words, it's a little big. It's a little bit bigger than that, but
right.
So you saw it. Did it feel little? I mean, did it look little to you?
It looks small.
I mean, it looks small compared to the Neo, but it didn't look tiny. Like it didn't look like a little, cute thing.
So
now, by the way, the Neo you could still use that way. It's got LTE, right? I'm sure you could use it for phone calls.
2 9-inch screens.
Yeah, maybe I'll just get. Maybe it's just the gateway drug to a Neo.
It could be. I mean, I'm sure from their perspective, it's a cohesive family of devices or whatever. But
I think that's back to the developer story that they didn't really talk about, but they said was the reason for disclosing this. I think that what they're trying to make it look like to developers is, okay, one is running Android, one is running Windows 10. But you know what? You need to care about the UI layer, right? You need to make these two things look alike. Wherever it makes sense for the gestures to be the same, for the controls to be the same. That's your job, developers, if you want to target both devices.
There's a real gap between Android and Windows and how that works across those devices. So, for example, if you think about like UWP apps like Windows Mail does this and Calendar does this, I think, you have the ability to open multiple windows of the same app. And you can, on a single screen, like you would have normal Windows display, you can snap those to the sides of the screen. So maybe on the left side of the screen, you have your main mail application. And on the right side of the screen, you have an email message. And the reason you do that is because you're in the main app responding to it, but you want to go back and scroll to the top because it's really long or something. So you're looking at the same thing in two different locations. Yeah. And today we do that. We can do that with Snap. Or you could just do them as floating windows too, obviously. But with this device, it's kind of I had two people tell me this was completely wrong, but I know this is true. It's basically an extension to Snap, but now you're accommodating which by Snap accommodates small.
That's what they called span, isn't it? Isn't that the thing they kept calling spanning and span? Like you put the app in the middle and it divides itself in half. So what you're saying, that the email list is over here and this specific email is on the other side. I believe
it's the same. I think it's just an extension of Snap.
You do?
It would. Yeah, of course it has to be. I mean, there wouldn't be a new model. They already have a model that works, but it requires app support for multiple views into the same app, which is, I think, a UWP feature, let's call it. And then Snap, which is a system-wide feature which works with any type of app. So you could have like a desktop application on one side and a UWP app on the other side, however you want to do it. It doesn't matter. Obviously, when you think about a screen with a split in the middle, you're just doing Snap across two screens.
Yeah. Are they making this device themselves, or are they out? They must be outsourcing it, right?
I don't think Microsoft doesn't really make
anything.
No.
Anything, right?
They hire ODMs, and they make them for them.
Okay.
But it'll be Surface branded, right? Both the Android and the Windows 10X device will both be Surface brand. We have no idea on the price. We know holiday 2020. We don't know when developers are going to start getting emulators or test devices, but I bet it's much sooner than build next year because that would be too late.
We were told at the event weeks before, not for code, but for a formal declaration of the developer story. So I think in their post they said months, but
when I think they're going to do some of this is at Ignite. Because this year at Ignite,
will get the crowd going.
We're going to cover the Ignite event. We've decided.
You are?
The keynote. Yeah, because I think you're right. I think this might be the kind of this other shoe dropping from this announcement.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. We talked about this in the context of 20H1, but with this notion at the time that this was a big deal, and we haven't seen anything big out of 20H1. What is the big deal? I think the big deal is this. It's the platform change that they're going to implement first in 20H1, but obviously this device doesn't come out until 20H2. But they often will do this thing. They put the platform part in, and then it just sits there, and then they implement it in the next version. I think that's what this is about.
Interesting.
I think this will be. I think that's not possible at this point.
Not possible.
I think.
What do you
I
mean?
think 20H1 is done, pretty much.
So right. So actually, when I said that, I think I said something like our original understanding of H1 was that this was before the event. This was the sort of thing I had put in my head that like this is how it was going to go. But you heard at the event or
20H2.
concurrently to it that there is nothing major coming in 20H1. But that's not contrary to what I said. In other words,
no, I understand what you mean.
To
like
people
there
who
could
get 20H1, you don't see the architectural change anyway.
Right.
You don't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's WCOS references already in Windows 10, right? And it doesn't really quote exist in a way, right?
Yeah. So I think it's, I think for a lot of people, the notion that 20H1 is something they tested for a year and there's nothing necessarily major in it is a little confusing. But there's a big platform shift coming here, right? With and actually this is part of the developer story for Neo, which we should probably get to, which is this notion of they're pulling out the WinUI layer from UWP and they're making it as a separate layer that any framework can target directly without having to go through UWP, which is kind of interesting. So short term.
Is that WinUI 3? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
there?
right.
Yeah.
Right. That's the end game. And so maybe that's a 20H2 or even later type of thing. But the short term thing, which is kind of tied to that whole UWP is dead or is it kind of conversation, is this XAML Islands thing, right? This notion that from another framework, from Win32 or from WPF or whatever, you can access features that were previously locked into UWP. And that's like the broadening of the ecosystem for developers. I think that's what developers have been asking for, that we want those capabilities, but we don't want to make a UWP app, or we have an existing app. We want to add those capabilities to that app. We're not going to do the whole thing over again.
Right.
But we want those new features, right? So it's pragmatic.
Yeah. Yeah. So I still think they should have called the two names the opposite that they did. Whenever I hear Duo, I think of like a book, right? And when I hear Neo, I think of something small, but they're actually the opposite. Neo is the Windows 10 one, and Duo is the Android
to me, I mean, I know a lot of people get there's like a matrix thing going on there. But to me, the term Neo suggests new.
Okay.
And maybe that's wrong. I don't know what the word Neo actually means, but I agree. You could flip the names, and what's the difference? And I think we're going to be getting these wrong for quite a while.
We will.
Or confusing them for quite a while, for sure.
But yeah, I already see a session on the Ignite list that I think is going to be super interesting. It's the one that says the Windows App Development Roadmap, making sense of WinUI, UWP, Win32, and .NET. I'm like, you know what? Yeah. That could be where they drop some knowledge about this.
Yeah, because this time next year, well, I mean, you could do it right now, really, but I mean, this time next year, you could create a WPF app using WinUI 3 on top of .NET Core, which actually by that time will just be .NET 5.
Right.
It's a really weird mix of old and new. It
is. Yep.
And it's a brand new thing in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have a little It's a Whole New World song right now.
Right.
If we had sound effects.
Right. It's a small world, except it's not. It's a complicated world.
It is.
The other thing, did you in your have you ever come up with anything on Windows 10X that suggests it's not always just going to be dual screen device?
So this is right. I don't think that is correct.
That it will always be stuck on dual screen devices?
So what's the problem here is the thing that's called Windows 10X is not exactly the same thing as Windows Core OS, and it's not exactly the same thing as Santorini or the Windows Lite, right? It's kind of like our understanding of that was kind of mixing two things together. So I still think Microsoft's strategy is to take Windows Core OS and put different shells on it. I think if you're Microsoft, what you should do is distinguish those with different letters or something. So 10X is the shell that is for dual screen devices. That's what I would do. And then whatever runs on like Service Hub 2X, it could, I know you think it could be 2X. I think it might be something like Windows 10Y or something like that.
Yeah, right. The name doesn't matter.
You know what
anyway,
I mean?
But it's yeah, I do. So actually, it might be related to the WinUI 3 thing. That, in other words, with that that is, in a way, the kind of developer manifestation of the separation of the shell as its own kind of a thing, and that shell could be different.
Yeah,
will be different on different types of devices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So in other words, there'll be a WinUI 3 there'll be a shell for Windows Desktop, the traditional version, whatever. And today we just call that Windows 10. Well, there's a million versions, but Home, Pro, Enterprise, whatever. There's that version that is on Surface Hub, which could be something completely different in the future. There's the version that's in HoloLens. There's the version that runs on IoT, which is a very lightweight, if not probably non-existent, I guess, kind of command line shell.
Yeah. You're hitting on
Xbox.
something. It's totally right. Like there's a common core. We used to call this one core, and now it's evolved to be Windows Core OS, right? And that incorporates.
But it never made sense for there to be a common shell.
It didn't.
Actually,
right?
that makes no sense. Yeah.
Right. And if you look at what they're doing with 10X, this is one of the first manifestations of when they separate out the expression, as they call it, of the UI and the logic from the operating system. So this is where they start actually separating the shell and the thing that we always call UX, user experience, from the underlying OS, right? Yep. This is so developers target that and up instead of having to deal with all the underneath.
Right, because the stuff that happens underneath will be automatic for them.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I know. It's going to be interesting how they do it.
I am desperate for a roadmap on this stuff, and so
Well, mostly to figure out how it fits in. I mean, it's not timing that you're worried about, but just what does it mean compared to what else you're doing, right?
Well, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this. Unfortunately, Microsoft, this notion that we're going to create this a Core OS, it's going to run on all our products. It obviously made more sense when they had a phone, but whatever. It's kind of a good idea vaguely, in theory. It is obvious now, and of course this is like Monday morning quarterback stuff, but with WinUI 3 now on the horizon, you think about it, it's like, these things shouldn't have had the same UI. I mean, they don't have the same UI, but they shouldn't a lot, Xbox has a different UI than Windows has a different UI than Service Hub, whatever. But there are commonalities between some of these for sure. They should have their own user experience. Obviously, that should. I mean, it's obvious, So this is a logical thing to kind of break out. You have to handle it for developers. Developers have said, a lot of them, that we're not interested in UWP. They brought back WPF and WinForms. They're making capabilities from UWP available elsewhere. There's a lot of stuff happening. It's. I don't know.
And if you look.
A little clarity would be nice.
Yeah, it would be good. WinUI 3, if you look at the official roadmap for that, it says they're trying to get a public preview out before the end of calendar 2019, this year.
Okay. And that's for WinUI 3.
Yep.
Okay.
I know.
I just don't want
There's a lot
XAML
of new
islands
stuff.
getting in my data lakes.
Keep your XAML islands out of here.
Yep.
Okay.
Confusing.
This is back to the duo.
Yep.
The do-over.
Yep.
Do-over.
Should have called it the Surface Mulligan.
It really is a do-over, isn't it, for Microsoft Phone? I wonder if they thought about that when they named it.
Oh, man.
It's our do-over on the Surface Phone.
Yeah, do over with like VER in parentheses.
Do-over.
Here.
Yeah.
But you say here, I'm quoting, sounds like a Paul Thurrott too.
Okay.
Android was the right choice, sure, but what about devs? What does that mean, Paul?
So I got an email from somebody who said, "Hey, this guy put up a poll, like a what do you call it? Not a survey, like a damn it."
Poll, survey,
petition.
A petition. Jeez, I'm
There
losing
you
my
go.
mind here.
Okay.
We don't usually do this on Fridays. Usually I'm like 3 martinis in by now. Anyway, a petition to get Microsoft to reverse course on the Duo, base it on Windows, and fulfill their promise to developers that they would have one app they could write that would run everywhere. That basically just do Windows Phone over again. And he asked me if I would publicize this on my site, I kind of point to it and, get people to sign it, So I disagree with that completely. So I did put it on my site, but I asked people to disagree with it, not to agree with it. I mean, that is the most like selfish, wrong-headed, dumbest idea in the history of ideas. That thing failed. And like you're asking, in other words, for some small group of people that are clinging on to this, most of them are not devs, by the way, they're probably just enthusiasts. Your needs and wants take precedent over the entire world of people that have already decided that Android and iOS are what makes sense on a phone. If Microsoft were to do that, this thing would never sell. No one would ever buy this. No one in any great number. The only way this thing can survive, can possibly succeed, is if it's Android. It has to be Android.
Yep.
Now, the problem is Microsoft does two problems. They have a family of devices right now that all run Windows. They're all Windows devices or Windows-like devices like Surface, where there's great integration there. And then there's the developer story where there is, frankly, there is a need here. I mean, how do we get a code base that we've written for an app that runs on Windows? How do we get that thing going on Android? And so there's kind of two things going on there. We know that Microsoft has done a lot of work on Android-Windows integration. We just talked about Your Phone as one really good example of that. So that work's been done. Microsoft talks about co-engineering this thing with Google, which no one really understands what they mean by that. Co-engineering could literally mean they signed a license for Android, and that's the end of it. I don't know. I mean, if there's a real relationship there or not. But I think, Microsoft has their apps on Android just like they have their apps on Windows. Everyone else does too, Microsoft has technologies for developers like Xamarin that help get their existing .NET code base, C# code, whatever it is, on mobile, including Android. So there's that path. The question is, are they literally working with Google? Android 11 will come out next fall, just in time for this thing. This will probably be based on Android 11. Some work went into Android 10 for dual screen and folding screen devices. Will there be more in the next version? Will they work with Google on that, like they work with Google on Chromium?
No.
I don't know.
No?
Yeah, I don't think so either, but
I think all they're doing is, I think all they had to do with Google was tell them they were making a phone because they needed to license the specific APIs and frameworks that go with having Play Store on the device. That's it.
So in other words, you're saying that co-engineering in this case is much like when they partner with somebody.
Yeah, that's my guess.
What they've really done is they're just a customer.
Yeah. That's my guess. I mean, maybe
I think
I'm
you're
wrong.
right. No, I think you're right. That would be my guess too. That's where I would put my money. So, but these are questions. I mean, and that's why, here we are. It's a year early. This is the reason they did it. They're going to explain all those questions I just asked. Hopefully will be answered within the next 30 days. That there will be some announcement or some session at Build or whatever it is where they say, look, this is what we're thinking, I don't know. I don't want to be a jerk about this. I'm sure I know there are some high quality Windows Phone apps out there in the world, for sure. And there are absolutely some high quality UWP apps of whatever stripe that run on whatever platforms. But I think we can all agree the vast majority of that stuff is crap. And getting that stuff on another phone is not really a high priority. It's, that failed. Just doing that again would be the biggest U-turn mistake, and it would just be that's a terrible idea. Android's the right choice for this thing. It absolutely, of course, it is.
Want to hear
Nobody
a
wants
weird
another
coincidence? Want to hear a weird coincidence?
Yeah.
Yes.
9 years ago today, this exact day, Steve Ballmer launched Windows Phone 7 in New York City.
Wow. 9 years.
Thank you, Thanis Swart, who reminded me of that.
That's amazing. Wow.
I remember that day fondly.
Yep.
It's not that
We were
long
there.
ago. I mean,
No,
to go
that whole
from
thing, you're right,
nothing
right
to
to
that,
something to nothing,
and then to nothing, and then now.
I know.
But you know what that
and if
day
they
really
did,
was?
the one smart thing they did is let's not do our own thing again. We're going to use an existing
Exactly.
operating
Yep.
system. That's
Well,
smart.
by the way, it's not just that. The big mistake they made with Windows Phone 7 was they went after the iPhone market. They went after consumers. The one thing they do have going for them here is they're right-headed about it. This is going to focus on businesses. This device will be manageable through Intune.
Of course.
It'll be something
Yep.
people can roll out in their
Yep.
environments. Like this is. I'm not saying that individuals won't buy it or maybe won't want to buy it or whatever. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be a focus as well. But I think the primary focus has to be on businesses.
Well, is it fair?
And that's something that they completely screwed up that last
on the
time.
9th anniversary of Windows Phone 7,
Mhm.
is it fair? And that was the first version of that UI, that new UI, right? That was
Yep.
well.
Arguably the Zune was the first version. But
Okay.
yes, that would.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the tiled UI with the
Metro
squares.
UI.
And I loved that UI, by the way.
Yep.
And that was where they had said, all right, we've seen Android, we've seen iOS. We're going to reinvent this. We're going to do it right. And they did. And I was trying to think what finally killed, what was the reason it couldn't take off? Because it was, I think, a better operating system than either iOS. Right?
You know what it was? It was a better idea. The technical.
There were problems.
They rushed it to market on Silverlight and Windows CE, whatever. They didn't get buy-in from partners. They had
came
these
too
great
late.
ideas.
I'm gonna say here's the one problem: developers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
Everybody was
no
already doing
apps.
iOS or Android.
No apps. Why would you even consider it?
No, but the problem is this. In other words, Facebook showed up, Twitter came,
Yeah.
but
Right.
The
they
people
want-
with a lot of resources wrote apps, but
right, but what those guys want is you to see a Facebook logo on your phone and click
Right.
on it.
That's
and
right.
go to Facebook. What Microsoft wanted was very user-centric. It was a wonderful idea for human beings. The idea is like you don't think in terms of apps. You
No.
think in terms of things.
what
I
you
want to look at
wanna
my
do.
photos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like my photos, I'll go into a Photos hub. All my photos will be there. They could be on Facebook. They could be in Google, Picasa at the time, or Google Photos, whatever. They could be up in OneDrive. You don't care about that. You're a human being. I just want to see my photos. That is not what those brands want, right? And that was part of the reason it failed. Google and
It was
Facebook
too good
and
for
everyone
humans.
else.
It was too good for consumers.
Well,
not
and
good
then
enough
all the
for brands.
carrier issues, right?
Well, that was another
all
problem.
kinds of problems with
Yeah.
the carriers.
No, I'm not saying that. Of course, there were many, many problems. I'm just saying, but from the perspective, one of the reasons there weren't apps was that no one wanted to buy into this thing where your brand got subsumed into the phone user interface.
Right.
Facebook makes more than what. Remember when Facebook used to do everything in one app, and then now they broke everything out. They have Messenger is separate, and they want you to. They want to have your focus. They want you to have icons on the phone that are all Facebook icons.
Yeah.
Facebook doesn't care about what's best for you.
Not at all. We know that.
They care about what's best for Facebook.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason. That's not the only reason. There's a million reasons Windows Phone failed, but
Right.
they changed the underlying platform 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my God.
Yeah.
That was terrible for the developers that did buy into it. There were a lot of problems, but I don't know that the initial Windows Phone 7 series at the time announcement at Mobile World Congress that year in February was a lot like that PDC 2003, where they announced Longhorn, and it was super exciting. And we thought we were going to change the world, And in both cases, it was kind of a crash and burn because the reality did not match the dream at all.
Yep.
Well, isn't that the way life is?
Yep.
That's just
But you know
life, my
what? You know what,
friend.
though? But seriously, they announced RTM of Windows 10 version 1909. The rest of this is just
Gravy.
really.
Let's keep Paul in a good mood. Let's keep
Oh,
Paul in
boy.
a good mood and talk about Xbox and games. Mary Jo Foley can take a break, and we will come back and get the back of the book.
Mary Jo has an important Xbox game story in here, so she can't totally
I do.
check out.
Oh, let's hear it. Okay, let's go. Xbox.
They get through the boring stuff first. So, iOS 13 formally supports Xbox wireless controller. That's
so
the
cool.
Xbox One controller.
That's so cool. And your
Also the
PlayStation 4.
DualShock.
Yeah, DualShock.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I connected one and kind of checked that out. It works great. In fact, one of the I will say this: I'm not into the arcade games. I'm meaning the Apple arcade games, but they the ones I tried, if you connect a controller, it actually puts a little controller overlay on the game while you're learning it, so you can learn which buttons do what, like a little help kind of a thing. And it looks like the Xbox controller, right? It's not like a generic controller, at least in the couple of games I tried. That's really cool. There is Call of Duty Mobile is now on mobile. Call of Duty Mobile. Yeah, Call of Duty is now on mobile as Call of Duty Mobile. That game does not support controllers, at least not natively. There's ways you can kind of hack that. I didn't screw around with that, but I could picture switching to mobile just for that, just for Call of Duty. Like I could picture switching from console to mobile if they ever get the controller thing going. It looks really nice. And then there are existing games that support controllers, and I tried Fortnite, for example, and it plays completely normally. It's great.
That's nice, isn't it? Yeah.
This could be a game changer, pardon the pun. Kind of a neat thing. Apple is selling the Xbox wireless controller from their online store. You shouldn't buy it there. It's actually kind of expensive. You can get it cheaper on Amazon, but interesting, right? And then the other story for Xbox is that the October 2019 Xbox update is out. This is essentially their version of 1909. There aren't any what I would call major new features. They didn't make any changes to the dashboard, et cetera, et cetera. But there's some neat little things, notification of wish list items. And what was the other one? I can't remember. This small stuff, but that is out. So if you haven't turned on your Xbox in a while, you'll be updating the next time you do.
Well, that's just the normal way it is.
Yeah.
I update my Xbox every time
Christmas, you'd open the box and you play with whatever the thing was. Now Christmas, you open the box and you
download
spend the next
firmware
45 minutes updating and download games. All right, so Mary Jo.
Yeah.
What's up?
Something interesting.
Xbox. How exciting.
I would like to ask Paul, what the heck is going on over in Xbox land right now? Because here's what happened this week. Mike Ybarra, who's been at Microsoft for 20 years, he's Xbox corporate VP, quit. Now I see today the two founders of Microsoft Mixer, which used to be Beam, who joined Microsoft. They're both gone, too.
Oh, I thought it was only one of them. Oh, interesting.
No. So my question for you, Mr. Thurrott, is Xbox imploding? Please say yes.
Yeah, that's no, American.
No. Or is it like xCloud is shaking everything up, or what's going on?
Well, before you popped my little balloon earlier, I was actually putting this into the bucket of things that made me think things were changing over there. Because as you know, Xbox is in the same business unit as Windows and Surface and Microsoft 365, right? Or maybe not Microsoft 365. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I thought this might have been tied to some bigger thing that was going on. So actually, I don't know.
Okay.
I should ask Mike Ybarra. Well, Mike Ybarra, he's not saying where he's going. I suspect in his case, he, like a lot of guys who are high up at Xbox, gets job offers from the industry all the time. Yeah. And I suspect you're going to find out he's gone to a game publisher or something like that.
Facebook.
No, he's a good guy, Mary Jo.
Gabe All went to Facebook. Gabe All works on virtual reality stuff at Facebook.
Sometimes the stock is more important than your beliefs.
What's the phrase? Money is thicker than blood? Yes. No, money is...
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't... Facebook. I hope not Facebook.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there.
I did say, by the way, Gabe All is one of the people
who
did congratulate him publicly on Twitter, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. Is the short.
Just wanted to throw that ray of sunshine into the Xbox discussion.
Well, like I said earlier, this actually played a role in my thinking that maybe something big was going on structurally. Mm-hmm. So now that I know that's not the case, you could just shovel some more dirt up the grave.
It's not the case in Windows. I can't say it's not the case in Xbox.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Just call me Little Miss Sunshine.
Okay, Little Miss Sunshine. Is that it for Xbox? That's it?
Yes.
Oh, that was too short.
Sorry.
I could have done more. Hey, can I, before you get to the back of the book, recommend Microsoft Mechanics? You already mentioned it once, Mary Jo Foley. I'm glad to say they're smart enough to say we should sponsor your Fine Windows Weekly podcast and get everybody to listen to ours instead.
I like it.
Yeah. Hey, bring it on, baby. It's Microsoft's official show about the latest Microsoft tech. And actually, it's great. You should listen to both. They do engineering deep on the latest tech announcements from Microsoft. They touch on trending IT topics, and we know a lot of IT folks listen to our shows. They bring you, and I really like this, step-by-step, multi-part tutorials, lots of detail, lots of explanation, so you can follow along and watch. They just did one on Windows Virtual Desktop. It's IT, large-scale Office and Windows deployment. There's a whole step-by-step on that. And these are not, this is not going to YouTube and watch some guy named Jimmy to show you how to do it. These are carefully crafted, verbally and visually, with demos. They even have graphics and illustrations and stuff, and that's really nicely done. These are really nicely done. And by the way, they respect your time. Most of them are under 15 minutes, unlike this show. So they get to the point, unlike this show, without wasting your time. Well, we don't waste your time, but unlike this show. They call it the Visual Cliff Notes for Microsoft Tech. And by the way, completely free. This is a really nice thing that Microsoft does. You want to know more about the latest Surface devices? You want to know more about cloud or on-prem infrastructure improvements across Azure and Windows, database architectures, management and admin tools, security and compliance controls, product. You get the idea where we're going here, right? Who this is for. Productivity, innovation, and more across Microsoft's complete range of products and services for business. By the way, we're going to be at Ignite. We're going to be talking about Ignite. If you're going to Ignite in Orlando next month, the whole team will be there presenting live every day. Mark Rasinovich, love him. He's awesome. Aaron, is it Chappell?
Chappell.
Chappell, Brad Anderson, Julia White, Rob Lefferts. So if you're fans already of Microsoft Mechanics, you can meet the stars behind the scenes, watch them do their presentations, and I'm sure they'll be recording them and presenting them as well for you to watch later online. Tech enthusiast, IT professional, systems architect looking to stay up to date, visit aka.ms. This is their URL shortener. You're familiar with it, I'm sure, by now. aka.ms, WW Mechanics Today. You could subscribe there and get it automatically. You don't have to remember that address. aka.ms, WW Mechanics Today. Yeah, it's a podcast. I love that. So instead of just, having to go to Channel 9 and see, you can go to aka.ms/WW Mechanics, use your podcast app, subscribe to it, and you'll get it automatically. Microsoft Mechanics, your free go-to source to discover the latest Microsoft tech. Really good people. Really great stuff. And I'm happy to help them. Now, no.
They do a whole different thing than we do.
Yeah. No. It's I think a perfect compliment to what
it
you
is.
guys do.
It's a good compliment.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're good people too. They make good stuff.
Oh, Rasinovich is amazing. He's also a great novelist. I hate it when people are overachievers. I just hate that.
Yep.
Tip of the week, PT.
I have tips.
Tips.
Okay.
Here.
Actually, these were the tips of last week, or one of them is because last week, what happened last week? We didn't have enough time.
You ran out of
we had the
time?
schedule. Yeah, we.
What?
So while you were away, Leo, this entire place went to hell. By the way,
What the hell? You can't run out of time on a Twit podcast. Time is fungible.
Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway,
There are a lot of things.
Did you have to go? Was that it? Did you have to leave?
It was just a tough.
Did Micah just fall over and boredom?
No.
No,
You
it all
pass
worked out.
Okay.
It all
Well, we got
worked
some
out.
tips.
We do have some tips. So Microsoft announced some months ago that they were adding something called the Personal Vault to OneDrive. That is now available. You should see that. You'll be prompted in Windows. I think you'll be prompted in mobile as well. And what this is a 2FA-based part of OneDrive where you have to kind of sign in to use it and access it. The idea is you put your highly sensitive data there, like your, maybe a picture of your license and your credit cards or something. So if they get stolen, you can go back and, call the number and so forth.
I like that.
Yeah, I found it a little annoying on desktop, at least, because you'll sign in. It will say, "Hey, do you want to get into your personal vault?" And say, "Yeah, that sounds good." And you do whatever you have to do to get into it, and then it will start warning you that it's going to close if you don't say it's okay. Like it's kind of strange the way it works, but it's a really good idea. At least take a look at it. You'll put it in front of your face. Like if you use OneDrive at all, you'll see it now. But it is available broadly. And then the other two actually another OneDrive tip, I should go to that one. On iPad OS, meaning iPad OS 13, the new version of the system, the OneDrive app supports multiple instances, which is interesting. We just talked about this a little bit. And the idea of that is that you can have multiple instances of the app. So you can be looking at two parts of your OneDrive storage at the same time, side by side. If you want to do that, that's cool. And then Google has released these are like app picks. What's going on here? This is all screwed up, Leo. Anyway, whatever this is, an app pick or a tip. Like I said, I'm not usually doing this on Friday afternoon. Anyway,
labels don't apply to us, Paul.
Right. That's right. Google has a developer tool for mobile called Grasshopper that's pretty cool. So to date, it's available on Android and iOS, and it lets you learn JavaScript programming. And they've just brought it to desktop, meaning to web, really, right? So it's on the web. So you can access it from desktop, but they've greatly expanded the things you can learn as well. So this HTML is in there and some other web technology. So it's not just JavaScript, but they have also increased the JavaScript content as well. So if you want to kind of ease your way into software development and learn this kind of thing, this is actually not such a bad route, and it's especially tailored for beginners. So that's pretty cool.
Try this. That sounds cool.
And I guess one more tip, even though it's called tip number 2, tip number 4 is if you subscribe to Xbox Pass Ultimate, you can get 6 months of Spotify Premium for free.
Oh,
but you have to do it. Yeah, that's a really good deal. You have to do it through Spotify. So you go to the Spotify website. Let me see what the exact link is, if it ever opens. Yeah, it's not opening. Oh, there it goes. Well, there's a whole little. Actually, what is that? Anyway, you do it through Spotify. Don't worry about the link. That's the wrong link. And you'll get 6 months. So it's you have to be a new customer to, I believe, both, but at least to Spotify Premium. It is a Spotify offer. Spotify seems to give away a lot of free things these days, right? I think this is the Apple competition effect. So
absolutely,
if you're not a,
if
you're not a Spotify customer, this is a good time. It's a good time to start thinking about that.
Yeah. All right, let's get Cody. Actually, let's get Enterprisey.
Yep.
Mary Jo Foley, Enterprise Pick of the Week.
Right. So the date that should be blazoned into your brain is January 14th, 2020, end of Windows 7 free support from Microsoft. Up until now, you had to be a pretty large customer to say you wanted to buy extended security updates from Microsoft. And they're not cheap. They increase in price every year for the 3 years they'll be available. They're per device. But, if you're really desperate and you're a small or mid-sized business, you now also are going to have the option to buy extended security updates. Microsoft announced this October 1st. They said they will have certain qualified cloud solution providers who will be ready to take your order. So if you need to do the nuclear option and buy an extended security update, you now can, even if you're not one of the largest volume licensees.
Cool.
It's a worst case snenario, though. Don't do it.
While we were gone, somebody said Microsoft extended the deadline from January. No. They didn't add 9 months to it, or no.
No, that was for Office support, I think. But not for
Windows 7.
Windows 7. No.
Is this going to be the same deal where you buy it and it doubles every year?
Yep. Not a great option, but you have an option.
It reminds me of the story about the man who invented chess. Do you know that story?
I do not.
So he invented chess. Great game. Went to the Sultan. Sultan said, "Whatever you ask, anything in my kingdom you shall have for inventing this fine game." He said, "It's simple. It's simple. Just put 1 grain of rice. There's 64 squares on the board. 1 grain of rice on the first square. Put 2 grains of rice on the second square. Put 3 grains of rice on the third square. 4 grains of rice on the third square. Double it each time.
Right, right.
And that is all I ask." The Sultan said, "You are asking for so little. It is fine. It is all I need." Of course, he bankrupted the kingdom because of the laws of exponentiation.
Yes.
So Microsoft is saying effectively, put 1 grain of rice for year 1. 2 grains for year 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128.
Yeah.
I get it. All right.
Yeah.
Apparently they haven't heard the parable of the chess.
No,
I think they have
had
heard.
not.
They want to bankrupt these guys because, in other words,
In other words, they don't want you to
switch.
do it for very long.
Yeah, but year 2, you're going to say, geez, I can't afford this. I should probably just upgrade.
Yep.
Codename pick of the week, Mary Jo.
Codename pick is Unity. So not a lot of people realize this, but Microsoft has something called the Office mobile app on Android that it's kind of like Microsoft Works. It's actually one app that lets you do word processing, spreadsheet, PowerPoint. It's in a single app. It's
So,
only
Mary Jo,
available right now. Yes.
You know that this app shipped on Windows Phone 7.
I know.
It's basically that app.
It's the Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
And so they've got it on the Galaxy Note 10 right now, but I hear this app is going to be made available to more, if not all, Android phones and also iOS in the near term. So I wonder if this might not even end up preloaded on the Surface Duo when it comes out next year. So if you're thinking, why would Microsoft do this? They're not going to get rid of those individual apps, right?
Okay.
Because some
Well, that's what I'm
people
wondering.
need more functionality and they just need the spreadsheet or they just need PowerPoint on their phone.
Right.
So I think they're going to keep all those separate apps, but this is for people who are like, you know what? I don't need to do a lot of word processing on my phone. I don't need to do a lot of spreadsheeting. But if I could just work with files people send me and do it in a very simple single app, that would be really great.
Half the time, you just need to read it.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that probably would be enough on my phone. I wouldn't need the individual apps.
Yeah.
Anyway, the code name of that is Unity, I hear, and it'll be interesting to see if we hear more about that at Ignite or sometime soon.
Interesting.
Didn't it come out? It came from a strange place, didn't? In your article, I think there was a.
Came from a strange place.
Well, no.
Like
In
a
other words,
movie.
it's not from like the Office team in Redmond, wasn't it? From
Yeah, it's from a development team from Microsoft in India.
Oh.
That
India. I didn't mean to suggest that India was a strange place. It's just that it,
you
it
just
not
said
wasn't.
not the
Microsoft.
usual
Yeah.
team.
I don't.
that
Yeah.
goes off.
I haven't insulted a billion people yet today.
Well, yes, you have.
Now you have,
actually.
so
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Another day goes
Weekend
by
begins.
without a fatwa on Mr. Thurot's head.
Yep. Yep.
All right, time for the Becky of the week.
Yes, indeed. Time for some pumpkin beers. I don't drink a lot of them, but
God, they make pumpkin
what?
spice beers.
yeah. So
Oh
there are
God.
some good ones. There are some good ones.
There are actually some good ones. Good luck finding
Yep.
them.
I know.
Well, I think
I'm going to give you a
Mary Jo's
choice
found
of one of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Prairie Artisan Ales makes a beer called Basic Becky. It is not basic. It is very complex, to be honest. And it's an imperial stout. It tastes a little bit like coffee. You can definitely taste the pumpkin. When I ordered it in a bar, the bartender said to me, think about chocolate pumpkin fudge. And as soon as I took a sip, I'm like, yep, that's what it tastes like. So it's very good in a small pour. It's like 11%, so you're not going to drink a whole lot of it anyway. I mean, you wouldn't want a pint of this, I'm saying, but a dessert beer, nice little 8-ounce, it would be okay.
It's just good he didn't say think of a sweatshop bicycle seat or something, and you would have tasted
Slight hint
that.
of Pampers.
Think of
The problem with pumpkin is that it's
pie.
actually a very subtle flavor, and
It
most
is.
pumpkin beers are really just like spice, like cinnamon.
yeah, the
and
spice is the strong flavor. So this tastes more
This
like
is very
pumpkin than the
spicy.
spice.
This one, you can taste a little pumpkin, but you can also taste cinnamon cloves. You can taste all
Wow.
those things too.
There's a lot of stuff in it. Yeah,
There is.
I think that's
It's good, though.
appropriate. This would be a good Thanksgiving ale.
It would, indeed.
Yeah.
Or a Halloween beer, goes with
Halloween
candy
beer.
corn.
Yeah, just something to dip your Twix into while you're watching
Exactly.
Halloween on TV.
Oh,
Yep.
jeez. Oh my God, sounds so awful.
Delicious.
That's how I spend the weekends.
He's a Twix dunker, folks. We got him right here. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this. Aren't you glad you waited 2 extra days for this? This is good stuff. I am
man.
so sorry we missed a couple of days. I apologize, but we are back, clearly.
I'm sure it was worse for you than it was for anybody.
It was.
Yeah.
I was on because you know why? Because they never told us when it was coming back. We had no idea. Could be all weekend. It could go out now.
I know.
It's very frustrating.
That's too bad.
Yep, but
glad you're
thank you
back.
for your patience. I really appreciate it. I know this. It's nice of you to do this on a Friday and afternoon. I'm sure you had other things to
As
do.
you can see, we totally mailed it in, but no problem.
Go watch the Yankees get beat.
I hope so.
Paul
Tomorrow.
Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley. Paul's at Thurrott.com. His books are at leanpub.com. Mary Jo's at allaboutmicrosoft.com. And thank goodness they're with us, usually Wednesdays. Every Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC. We stream it live at twit.tv/live. I hope you'll come by and watch. If you do, join us in the chat room, irc.twit.tv. And Paul and Mary Jo, I have in this envelope a very special invitation. Well, somebody opened it and took it out.
Well,
but I
it used to be
had in
there.
this envelope a very special invitation
And the
to
winner is
our brand new forums, twit.community.
Oh.
And you're not required to, but many of the hosts are in there if you want to be. We automatically, all the shows, when they get posted, get a topic gets started for that show so people can add to it if they want. You can ask
So I
questions.
should link to this then when I post the show.
No, because
stuff.
we still post it at twit.tv/ww. So it's not, you know what? Here was the thinking on this. We have the chat room, irc.twit.tv, but it's only really useful for people who are watching live.
Right.
And by far, the largest group of people who listen to the show are, tomorrow, the next day, they're going to be listening later. So we wanted to give them a place where we could talk and go back and forth. So you, again, not required. Everybody would love to see you and Mary Jo in there. But if you've got other things to do, beer to drink, that kind of thing.
Be some drunk dialing.
Go on in
tonight,
there
I
and
think.
do it drunk. It would be so fun. Twit.community. That's the address.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. Cool.
And we'd love to see it. I'll make a special section if you join. I'll promote you up to leader, the leader of the forum. That's twit.community. What else? I said when the show is. Oh, subscribe. That's the most important thing. Subscribe in your favorite podcast application. That way you never have to wonder, is there a Windows Weekly? And for those of you who are subscribing, good news, you might have wondered, well, where's my show? But it's now going to, you just got it. So you understand what happened, and that's why you subscribe. Any podcast application will do it. Just search for Windows Weekly. Paul, Mary Jo, thank you so much. And I will see you next Wednesday. That will be my last visit with you for a while.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because I'm going on vacay. No,
wow.
Oh, yeah, October 21st. Lisa and I are skying to Athens. Not
Skying?
Greece, not Georgia. We're jetting. We're boarding a
I see.
plane, going to the Greek
You're not a hot air balloon.
hot air balloon. There'll be actual jets involved. At least they promised me jets. And then we're going on a little cruise to Jerusalem and Petra, Jordan, and Egypt. We're going to go through the Suez Canal. We'll end up in Dubai. And we'll be back, but it's going to take a while, as you might imagine, to row all that distance. So we won't be
that's
back.
a big trip.
Yeah. So, October.
Well, if that little girl from Sweden can do it. Then.
Oh, Greta Thunberg, man, we're going in her sailboat.
Nice.
No, I actually did. I felt so guilty after watching her. And
I'll wait till I tell her you're doing this.
I bought. I know. I mean, it's the worst.
How many forms of ecological disaster?
Oh, it's a
would you say
nightmare
your
what we're
travel
doing.
is
We're
gonna
pooping
entail?
in the ocean. We're
Yep.
Anyway, yuck. So I bought carbon credits for the whole thing, which are surprisingly affordable. So the theory is we're planting trees or doing other carbon capture technologies to offset what the carbon we're putting in the air doing this trip. And the nice thing is that works, immediately, but then in the years gone by, more carbon will be sequestered thanks to that. So I think that's a good
My
thing.
wife is not going to live long enough to offset the carbon generated by her Volkswagen Jetta.
Is it a diesel?
Yeah.
Oh, you can see the carbon
I
forming.
was to say, she thought she was saving the planet.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
driving down the street and the trees are dying behind her as she goes by.
She's rolling coal.
Yeah.
We actually are looking into buying carbon credits for this show because we know more hot air has been expelled in the last 2 hours.
Nice. Very good.
No, we are. Twit is actually looking at what it would cost either to put up solar panels, because then maybe we could be off the grid, or but we certainly want to look at being carbon neutral if we can. So we're gonna work on that.
That's great.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Mary Jo. I'll see you next week, and then I'll be saying goodbye.
How long are you gone?
I wish it were longer. That's all I can say. No, actually, after this last adventure,
You going to be back for Ignite?
October. We get back November 15th. When's Ignite?
No.
Yikes.
I'm gonna
missed
miss
it.
Ignite.
Yep.
Yeah. There's probably going to be an Apple event in there too,
You
Leo.
can't win because I moved. Last year
You
we
can't
were
win.
we were gone during the Apple event, so I moved it into a later in the year.
Yep.
You can't win. There is no time you can be
There's
gone
no free
and nothing
time.
happens.
We are going to go to CES this year. It's going to be fun. Aunt and I are going to do Leo and Aunt's Excellent Adventure at CES.
Oh man.
Nice.
Just the two of us. It's going to be wild.
Sure.
I can't wait. So we can look forward to
That's
that.
cool.
When is Ignite? November.
November
7th?
7th.
3rd to
No,
7th.
3rd to 7th. 3rd to
So
7th.
we'll
Third was
we'll
probably
obviously-
3rd to 8th,
We'll
technically.
obviously cover it, but and Micah, you seem to like Micah pretty well, except for his forgetting to do the back.
By the way, not to drag this out again and again, but his take on Panos Panay was fascinating.
Yes,
And the thing
Yes,
I
I
love
thought so,
about him
too.
is a lot of people are like, oh, he doesn't know anything about Windows. It's like, yeah, that's the point. He has
not bad
such
to
a
get
fresh
that. Yeah.
face. Like it is. I found that to be astonishing.
No, it's good.
was
It makes
really,
us
really
explain things, right?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
we
get
gloss
ready
over.
because he's going to come back.
No, I thought it was great. I
I
really
agree.
thought that was interesting.
And if you get a chance, watch Aunt Pruitt and Micah Sargent doing the Panay event, doing the Surface event, because I wasn't here for that,
Right.
and they did a great job. All except for going to the ad right when he's
Yeah.
That's the demo. But anybody could have fallen for that.
Who knew?
Who knew? Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Mary Jo. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.